Hello, everyone, and welcome into our latest live broadcast. There I am. Today, it's the 3rd of April. It's Friday, at the end of the week, and the beginning of April. Hope everybody's having a great day today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys. You know, we are a Windows-based channel because I work as a desktop repair field service report, IT tech, so computer tech. And one of the most common questions we get, despite all the different reasons that people have computers, every single one of you basically has Windows. Most of you have Office. And people want to know, where can we get these things? Now, people do ask about other less popular software, and there's not much I can do for them on most of that. But when it comes to Windows and Office, it's such a common, and it's just so everywhere. I wanted to let you know that where I buy my Windows and Office copies is online at this website. And I tested a lot of different websites out to find one that was legit and, you know, would have my back if something were to go wrong, and not just, you know, ghost me like a lot of other key sellers online do. And long story short, our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys support everything they sell for 6 months, and they take PayPal as a payment, and they're offering you guys, well, me included, 25% off using my coupon code. So if you want the links for that, it's just below every live video I do. Just click on the show more. Let me show you. Let's go over to, here's a screen capture, and down below where my name is, and then you see like the date and the views, just click more right there, and that's going to contain all the links of everything we talked about during the show. And it also has the links for VIP-URCDKEys and the coupon code for, as you see there, Windows 11 Home and Pro, and Windows 10 and Office, many different Office versions. You're going to add that to your cart. You'll see that's the price everybody pays. But if you want to use the coupon code, you're going to need to, well, one way or the other, you're going to need to log in. So if you don't have an account, it's free to make one. And that's where they're going to email you your receipt and your product key and any download instructions for the software. So once you sign in, then you can enter the coupon code, and then you'll see that 25% discount take effect, and then just submit your order down below on the bottom right there. And then just go through the payment process. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. You'll see the first option is PayPal, along with many major credit cards, along with Google Pay and Mint. So with that, I just wanted to make you aware that that's available. It's not a commission-based link. I'm not twisting your arm at all. It's not a high-pressure sales. If you want a legit copy of Windows or Office and you don't want to be messed with, you want to make sure you have peace of mind that you know, no one's going to ghost you or take your money and run. Well, that's where I buy them for my business, those license keys for my clients, so that I'm not going to throw my business away to save a couple of dollars on a license key. On the other hand, I'm also not going to pay $200 for the same exact license from Microsoft, because, you know, my competitors aren't doing that. Dell isn't doing that. HP isn't doing that. And so I've got to be able to be competitive in the marketplace without, you know, pirating software or putting in, even in the hardware, you know, buying things off eBay, and then what happens if that thing breaks? The customer is going to come back to me and expect me to make it right, you know, especially during the first year. And then it's on me. I have to be my own warranty. I have to go buy another one, and I probably don't have another one. It means I have to order it. That means the customer's repair is going to take, even at no cost to the customer, it's costing me money, and the customer is going to be down a few days waiting for the replacement part. It's so much better when you run a business to let somebody else cover those expenses, that having that support, whether it's software or hardware, is absolutely critical to my business. So at the very least, it helps. Even if the manufacturer has to send me something and I have to wait a couple days, at least I'm not also paying for it, well, inconveniencing the customer. We can sort of reduce the inconvenience to both me and the customer simply by having support that is responsive and helpful. And sometimes that separates a good company from a bad one. if I buy from AliExpress, it's like buying from a garage sale. You're more or less on your own, and you save money because you really don't get the warranty and support that a competitor like Amazon or Newegg or other online, Micro Center would have for you with regards to money back guarantees, faster shipping, and support in general. So if you want to say, hey, listen, I don't want the support, I don't want the warranty, I'd rather save the $20 or $30 and go buy, at the garage sale, just know what you're buying. That's all I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with it. Just some people think it's the same thing, and trust me, it's not the same thing. So you get less, you pay less. And there is a difference when you've got to ask yourself, when you see those really low prices on stuff, what am I missing? What am I not getting for this price? Because I guarantee you they're taking something out. So in many cases, it's the support, or it's the warranty or return period. There may not be any. So without that stuff, the manufacturer doesn't have any support costs. Without the support cost, they don't need to make as much money, so they can sell the unit for less. So just so you know, what's interesting to me is we're in a position right now that I think is pretty interesting in the PC industry with regards to what's going on with PC pricing. And for a while, these budget machines were starting right around $150 to $180 for a nice budget mini PC. Now we're looking at the same mini PC for $300, which isn't quite twice the price in most cases, but pretty darn close to it. But at the same time, even when those computers were $150, there were still people turning their nose up at them. I mean, it's $150. What do you expect? So I wanted to show you something here, just to give you an idea of the way the West, just if you're not aware, like, why are manufacturers making certain things and offering them without support? Like I mentioned, like, why would they even do that? Or why don't we have all these bells, whistles, and features that maybe you want, but unfortunately just aren't selling much of? So if you're a manufacturer, you don't really have any feelings in the game. You just want to sell product. And if you find that your lower end products far outsell your more expensive products, guess where your focus is going to be? So if we go over to Amazon, I just want to show you something. And you can check this anytime you're curious. But let me jump over here. We'll log in. Well, I'm not going to log in, but we'll just go to Amazon. And let me share the screen with you here. Let's see. Amazon. Oops. This should work. Yeah. Okay. So let's type in mini PC. I'm sure many of you have done this already, but there's probably a thing most of you aren't doing, and that is filtering your results. So right up here it says sort by featured items. Amazon determines what's featured, not you, not your purchase history. This could be a sponsored link. It says sponsored right up here, where they pay Amazon, regardless of what you're looking for. If it's in this category, it should put this up at the top, regardless of your specific search request. And there usually be like two of them. There's the first one, there's the second one. So these are not your search results on Amazon. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you drop this down and see what your options are, look at the best sellers. Are the best sellers going to be gaming PCs? Are the best sellers going to be those high-end i9s, Ryzen 9s, Ryzen 7s? No. In fact, they probably sell one of those for every 40 or 50 of these. When I say these, ignore this top one here, because Apple, that's not us, right? So that doesn't apply to us. And they don't really have any competition with other Apple compatible products the way that Windows does. So right here, like right at the top, we've got the Camrui Panova P2, which I don't think we've reviewed the P2. We have reviewed other Pinova models, at least one recently, but the P2 at $299.99, and they want $14.99 delivery. Oh, maybe that's because I'm not signed in. But notice when we click on it, all the different Pinovas that are available. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 8 different models of this Camrui, and you see how the price up here will change when I click on these, and it can, you know, what you're seeing as a cheap price may actually be cheaper through some of the other options, like this has a $50 coupon, and then you consider how much more you're getting for the money. This one says it's $349, but if it has a $50 coupon, it could be a better value than this first one. And Mara says we have email. Thank you, Mara. All right, so let me go back and see what other top sellers. You want to guess? Camrui is going to be up there. I want you to think, some of you know who you are, where you turn up your nose at something because, oh, it's not upgradable, it's soldered in RAM, it doesn't have enough of this, it doesn't have enough of that. Think of the worst thing that you would ever buy for yourself, and that's probably in the top sellers for the general public. All right, just so you know. So here's another Pinova. This is the P1. This is $20 more. And look how old that is. It's a Ryzen 4300. That's a pretty old CPU. However, again, watch for the discounts because there could be a coupon for $20 off or something that makes this the same $299 price as the one above it, but this may actually be a better value for the money. So don't just assume because Amazon is listing them like this that they're putting it in a value category. It's only in a bestseller category. Also, look at the number of reviews these have, right? 1,900 reviews here, 1,700 reviews here. As the price goes up and you get more specialty with your computer hardware, because fewer people are buying them, you're not going to see anywhere near as many reviews. So take, for example, this has 1,700 reviews, this one has 1,900 reviews, and we're in a $300 price range here, right? This one here, this Lenovo, that's only a Gen 4 Intel. You can't even run Windows, oh sorry, it's a 13th gen Intel. No, you're okay here. If it's 13th gen, it's fine. It's $600. You've got to watch, because sometimes, especially these Lenovo's, the HPs, and the Dells, they all look alike. So they could be 10 years old, or they could be brand new models. You can usually tell by the price. And here, $239. So we're sort of back down to budget levels now, because if 150 to 180 was our normal range, we're only about $60 higher than that right here, and that's going to be an N95. So again, when I'm talking $150 computer, we're talking about an N95. Maybe for 180, maybe get an N100, something like that, but it hasn't gone up as much as people think it has. It depends what you're looking at, right? Like video cards are a whole different story. Here's 5% on two. No, what else? So these are all of your big sellers. So I was going to go and find a higher end machine, but now that I've scrolled down, check this out. Here's a Geekom, the A7 Max with a Ryzen 9 for $700, but it doesn't have 1,700 or 1,900 reviews because percentage-wise, this doesn't sell as many. For every one of these that sells, for that $700, you could buy 2 of these. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on the use case scenario, but most people that have a Windows-based computer are not power users, and they just can't see the reasoning behind why anybody would buy anything more than these big, they're not featured, these best sellers, right? Because as much as it may not make sense to some of you why somebody would buy such a low end, they're the masses. They represent the majority, and they're looking at people like us going, we don't know what the heck you do with a computer that would require investing 2 to 3 times more money, and they just shake their head, and it's very much the same attitude as turning up your nose. They're sort of turning up their nose going, that's ridiculous and unnecessary. So neither person wants to see the other person's perspective. And you know, I kind of rubs me the wrong way when people can't see outside of their own needs and can't be bothered to just do a search like this and see, do you represent the average computer owner when you think a computer should have certain peripherals or accessories? Or are you a power user? And if you are, how can you also say you want a budget PC? You have to sort of pick one or the other. But, you know, if you look at the brands in the bestsellers category, you're going to see Ace Magic, you're going to see Camrui a lot. I'm surprised to see GeekCom in here. That's actually pretty good to see because, you know, they're another familiar brand. We see B-Link, they're another familiar brand, another GeekCom. Then you've got these Dells. So take a look at this Dell here. This is what I'm warning you about. This is a Dell 7050 i5 6500. This is not Windows 11 compatible, but they have circumvented all of the security settings to put Windows 11 on this. The seller has. This is not a new computer. An Optiplex 7050 with an i5 6500T. I mean, if you want to know how old this is, all you have to do is just highlight the first part of it and hit Control-C, open a new browser tab, and type in release date. You want to guess how old this is? This came out 9 years ago. So if you want to buy a computer that's 9 years old, not Windows 11 compatible, think of the money you're going to save. The savings is coming out of something, and it's your job as the consumer to figure that out before you make the purchase, or, you know, buy from Amazon or somewhere where you've got guaranteed easy returns. This one has a 90-day refund and replacement warranty, which is good. And this is not new. It says right here, it's refurbished. You need to pay attention to all these details and specifically start looking for them when the price seems too good. There's got to be a reason for that price. And maybe, you know, you're going to put Linux on it. Maybe you don't care that it's a 6500T. Maybe you don't care about your security, your identity being stolen. Maybe you don't care. You just want to save some money. I mean, whatever the reasoning is, you know, that's for you to make up your mind. But I just don't want you to think, oh boy, you know, I just stumbled on a pot of gold here, when it's not what it appears to be. It's exactly priced to exactly where it should be. If anything, it might be considered a little bit of a high price, to be honest. But with that, that leads us into the next thing I wanted to tell you about, which is there's a story of the chicken and the egg, right? Which came first? And when it comes to technology, very few people ever want to go first. So when we were trying to get to a 64-bit version of Windows, there wasn't a 64-bit processor. And if you asked Intel or AMD why they don't have a 64-bit processor, it was because there's no Windows version that's 64-bit. You ask Microsoft, why is there no version of Windows 64-bit? They say because there's no CPUs to run it on. Somebody has to go first. So in the case of 64-bit, I think AMD ended up going first, then Intel, and then Microsoft released a 64-bit kind of, I don't want to say experimental version of Windows. It wasn't XP, was it? Seems too old. Let me see. Let me Google it. We'll just type in here, what was the first 64-bit Windows? Yeah, it was Windows XP. They did, I am remembering this correctly, back in 2001. But most people didn't have it. Sort of, you had to know it was there and you had to go and get it. And it was a little flaky, and then there weren't a lot of driver support for it, so there wasn't much benefit in having it. But you got to start somewhere. That's the point I'm trying to make. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we now have 3 peripherals, one of them right here on the desk, that are Thunderbolt 5. However, right now in April of 2026, we don't really have Thunderbolt 5 on any desktops. If anything, the few computers right now that have Thunderbolt 5 overwhelmingly are high-end laptops, like gaming laptops, really expensive laptops on the Windows world. Apple's a different story, but in the Windows world, we have a GPU dock, and there's several to pick from that are Thunderbolt 5, but we don't have a Thunderbolt 5 plug to plug it into. We have NVMe enclosures. This one promises up to 6,000 megabytes per second, which doesn't make any sense to me because Thunderbolt 5 should be able to do 2 times that. In theory, if you had a Gen 5 NVMe, a high-end one in there, you should be able to get 12,000 megabytes per second out of that. Because Thunderbolt 5 can move data at 120 gigabits per second, as well as there's an 80 gig per second version of it that's also USB 4 version 2 or V2. That's also 80 gigabits per second. That would be 8,000 megabytes per second. And then if you go to the prior version of Thunderbolt or USB 4, then you cut that in half again. Then you'd be at 4,000. I don't know how they're getting to 6 on this, and I have no way to really test it. The bottom line is, when they came out, and they being just any NVMe, any external device, when they came out with these last year, they were using the latest USB 4. And we had USB 4 and we can test it. But this year they've got USB 4 V2, Thunderbolt 5, and essentially, well, we do have computers with USB 4 V2, we're still kind of held back because if the reason this exists is to replace, not to replace the previous year's model, but to enhance it. So let's say it can go twice the speed at twice the price. So if we look on Amazon, we can find this year's model that's twice the speed and twice the price of last year's model. But when I go to test this to review it, and I'm plugging it still into a USB 4, it's not going to run any faster than last year's model, and any benefit to having this is lost because we don't have the Thunderbolt 5 ports yet. So we have a couple of enclosures. We have the DEG2 GPU dock that's all Thunderbolt 5, and we have no way to test them because chicken and egg. In this case, the egg came first, and we have no chicken. Unfortunately, that means I really can't demonstrate this to show what it's capable of any more than last year's model. And you'd say, well, gee, Carey, that's twice the price. It runs exactly the same. Well, that's because I don't have it plugged into Thunderbolt. It'd be no different than if I put a Gen 3 NVMe in it. Then my bottleneck is the NVMe. So if I put a good Gen 4 in here, if that's saying 6,000 and Gen 4 can do 8,000 or 7,400, then Gen 4 is all we need in there. But if this can do 12,000, then Gen 4 will be the bottleneck. We have to go to Gen 5. Then we'd have to have a Thunderbolt 5 port to be able to test that. So I talked to our friends over at Rico about that. This is called the X50. And they'd sent us to it a while ago, and they had reached out saying, you know, did you ever make that video? And I'm like, well, I can't. I'm still waiting for something to test it with. And they said, well, would you mind showing a clip that we have made, that Rico has made? And I said, yeah, I'll do it during the live show. So let me show that to you now, so at least you're aware of it, because maybe you've got something that has Thunderbolt 5. So other than an Apple product or a very expensive laptop, you know, maybe then you would say, oh, I'm glad that exists. I'm going to go buy one. So let's see what their marketing looks like on this. Check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it out, check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it. I want to play that again. Check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, 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 check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it, check it out, check it, check it, check it out, check it. Okay, so I mean, I'm glad it's short. They kept it, you know, to the benefits. You know me, I'm going to show you how to put the drive in it. I'm going to run the crystal disk mark on it. I'm going to do all that. And there are some items, as I mentioned, we have another dock, or not a dock, but we have a another drive enclosure that's Thunderbolt 5, and we have the DEG2 for Minisforum, which is weird because who's Minisforum making it for when Minisforum doesn't make a Thunderbolt 5 enabled computer yet? But something has to come first. I just don't normally have to sit on things this long to wait for a matching piece. We might have Gen 5 NVMe drives, but have no Gen 5 NVMe slots on motherboards. One of those came first, I can't remember. So same with Gen 4, if you recall, back around 11th and 12th gen Intel, 10th gen and 11th gen, it was the shift over to Gen 4 M.2 slots, and you had to be careful which motherboard you were buying if that was important to you, because they were just starting to roll out. And then eventually, through economies of scale, that becomes a much cheaper component that's put on every board. And the Gen 3's phased out, you don't even have to pay attention to that, except for, you know, if you have multiple M.2 slots on a board, oftentimes the amount of lanes that the CPU can carry traffic through are limited. So it's not a board limitation so much as a CPU limitation, where you can have 1 or 2 Gen 4s and then 1 or 2 Gen 3s, maybe even 3 Gen 3s. It depends on the CPU involved. So I'm not saying Gen 3 is phased out, but what I am saying is worrying about if a modern motherboard has Gen 4. They pretty much all do now if it's modern. And most of them also have Gen 5. And then some of them got rid of Gen 3. So now you've got Gen 5, like 1, maybe 2 slots that run in Gen 5. And then you'll have maybe 1 to 3 other slots that run Gen 4, for example. Or, you know, the more slots you have, the fewer lanes that are available, and that's going to mean those other slots are going to pay for that with performance. But be that as it may, let me jump over to the chat and say hello to everybody. A shout out to our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, who sends his usual Amazon gift card in lieu of a super chat. Thank you, Buster. We hope you're doing well. Hello to Jonathan Fells and Sean Skinner and Isaiah saying hello, along with David Graham and Mark Gaines. Did you ever get your computer problem figured out, Mark? I'm kind of curious what the follow-up with that was, and if you got your cooler put on and all that other fun stuff. Haven't heard from you in a while. I was curious how that's working out for you. Phil Stodd says hello there, Scott. Saying hello in the chat, along with Phil Stodd and Eddie Casanova. And Lou Greenia saying hello. Dwayne Blackwelder joining us. 3D Everything says hello. There's L. Perez. Of course, Mara, our channel administrator, hanging out with everybody here today. I also see 3D Everything. Did I say that already? Andy W6AD says hello, along with Chris Garrett and Bike Man joining us. Dennis K joining us, saying hello, along with Thomas Mac T. The Gerard saying hello, and Jim Kenny. David Herzog. Andrew, Michael Lavelle, Dazzle555, all saying hello in the chat. If you're watching us live, please join us in the chat room. Say hello. Come join us. This is like a little clubhouse here. Rick Lake saying hello, and looking for anybody I've missed. Stephen DeToit says hello. Jose Lopez and Bradley Morris, W.E. Holmes, Alan with a Y, saying hello. Richard DeFries is joining us. Paul Connolly joins us. Welcome in. Andy wants to know if Thunderbolt 5 is equal to USB v2. Well, it could be. There's a couple different variations of Thunderbolt 5, but Thunderbolt 5 in its full bore, fully capable state is 120 gigabits a second. USB 4 would be, USB 4 V2 version. That would be 80. You have to just keep cutting it in half every time. Thunderbolt 5 doesn't quite double the 80 to 160, but it does take it to 120. So I want you to think of it maybe like a turbo mode. It will do 80, just like USB 4 V2, but it can also do, if it's implemented by the manufacturer of the motherboard, it can do, it's capable of 120 megabits a second. So that would be about 12,000 megabytes a second data transfer rate, which is what you'd expect to see on an internal Gen 5 NVMe on a high-end modern computer that's, you know, $1,500 plus. To be able to get that externally is theoretically possible, or get really close to it, assuming you could afford it. You know, it wouldn't be cheap. But the technology is there. And as a result of the technology being there on one side, but not on the other, you know, you got to have it on both sides if you want to take advantage of it. So we'll just have to keep an eye out for a Thunderbolt 5 enabled computer and revisit these products at that time. But if you have Thunderbolt 5 before I do, I just want to mention it because these products, these accessories are out. So you might get there before I do as far as having a computer that has a Thunderbolt 5. So I just want to raise awareness, just so you know, these products are out there, and you know, we now have 3 here in inventory, 3 different products that they don't require Thunderbolt 5 unless you want all the benefit of it. If you don't have Thunderbolt 5 and you don't need the benefit of Thunderbolt 5, you can save nearly 50% off the cost of these accessories by buying last year's accessories that are USB 4. I'm assuming you have USB 4. All right, so that's the pickle we're in. I ordered a computer off eBay called an Origimagic. Anyway, it was cheap. It was like $200 bare bones. I've got spare memory and stuff laying around, so I figured we'll do that for some content. I was kind of hoping it would arrive in time for today's show, but it got delayed. So it's, I think, expected tomorrow. And then we're expecting the really nice Minis Forum Gaming mini PC. It's the G1 Pro. It almost kind of looks like a PlayStation and an Xbox had a baby, except it's a lot thinner, but it's white in a similar way to the PlayStation. And it's like a 5060 graphics card in it, and it's like this thin. So I'm really super excited to get my hands on it. It's about a $1,700 PC over at Amazon, and we're expecting that to come in at some point this weekend. So we should have some good content for you on Friday and Sunday of next week. Maybe Sunday show, we will hopefully have that Origimagic PC. And my goal there will be to simply buy it off eBay, assume it's going to arrive fine, go ahead and put RAM and storage, load the OS live on camera, do a review of it, and then flip it over on eBay and try and recover our cost. I know I'm going to take a loss on it, but at this point, with our viewer support, we can afford to try and make the contribution money that comes in from your memberships, try and spread that out. I don't want to just buy one computer and then, you know, be completely out of money for a while. So I also don't want to sit there and repeat work I've already done. And so what enticed me about the Origimagic is I've never heard of them before. I think they're an offshoot of Boss Game. I don't know. But anytime we have an opportunity to look at a brand we've never seen, like, I don't know, Firebat, there's a bunch of them out there. If it's within our budget that we can do it, I certainly will. And if you have some budget-friendly suggestions for manufacturer brands we've never seen in the mini PC side before, feel free to drop us a line at our email address and send us a link to what product you're referring to. And keep in mind that we have these Amazon gift cards. So we really want the product to be available on Amazon. That also means that if we want to return the product, if we're so disappointed in it, we have 30 days to return the product, just get our darn money back. So I went to eBay because it was just, that's where the deal was. that day. Maybe if I waited a day, there would have been something on Amazon I would have found, or, you know, Minis Forum just came out with a computer that's not much more than what I paid for this, you know, used, I think it's used, this Magic, and it's a higher end computer, Murphy's Law. Let me pull it up here and I'll show you, see if I can find it. It's a really good deal. At least I think it is. Let me go to Minis Forum's website. They just announced it. Let's jump over here to the window capture. Okay, so the G7 Pro, don't confuse the G7 Pro with the G1. So the G7 looks pretty well identical to last year's G7. So I've not asked for this, and I'm not planning on buying one because it mostly looks the same. I mean, granted, it's got a higher end processor and a higher end GPU in there, but otherwise we've kind of been there and done that. I'm looking for something new and different. Minis Forum also has there's a GPU inside of here already. Instead of just being a dock, it's got the GPU in there, I believe. Let me make sure I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's got a Radeon 7600 XT in there, 7600M. And I don't know what it's selling for. But this way, you don't even have to worry about a video card. It's all enclosed inside, ready to just plug in and start using it. So Minis Forum's still cranking out these new innovative ideas and different products where everybody else seems like they're just selling last year's stuff. Minis Forum has that too, just so we, you know, just so you're aware. The N5 Air, I'm not quite sure I understand why the weight. Air implying that it's lighter weight, but I don't understand. Who cares how heavy it is? So, you know, they asked us if we were interested in it. It's basically the same as the N5 we've already looked at. And my main concern on the NAS side is their operating system is, it's not yet done. It's still in beta. This MS02 Ultra is like just an amazing machine. One of the most amazing, probably the most amazing machine we've seen so far this year. This is the G1 that I was talking about that we should be getting this weekend. And we ordered this back around February 18th from Amazon. And it's just now going to arrive this weekend. That's how long it was before we were able to get it. Sometimes, you know, it's the patience that makes the success of it, you know, achieving it and getting it tastes so much sweeter. The anticipation. So anyway, Minis Forum released a new budget machine, which is, let's see, I was trying to find it. Let's go to products. And I don't think it's AI. Let's see. Let's do a search for the word light, because that's all I can remember. I remember it had the word light in it. Let's go up here, type L-I-T-E. L-I-T-E. Where's the new one? This one. Yeah, the M1. That's it. So check this out. The M1 Lite 125U. Now, how much would you pay bare bones? In other words, you put in your own RAM, you put in your own solid state drive, you put in your own operating system. And for CPU, what you've got in here is what? Where's our specs? It's a Core Ultra 5 125U. So one of the newest CPUs from Intel on the mobile platform. If we go over back to Amazon and we search for this, is it available here? Not yet. I want to say they were selling this bare bones for like $239 or something, and then they had a, if you bought it directly here, they had a $30 off coupon. I mean, for basically what I'm paying for this Magic budget PC bare bones, I could have gotten, if I just waited, a machine that's got USB 4 on it. As you can see, it's got 2.5 gig wired LAN built in. I don't think this Magic has any of that. And by the time you pay for the shipping and the taxes on it, I think they're pretty much the same price, and they're both bare bones. One is a refurbished, or I don't know, I think it's an open box on eBay, and this is brand new with 30-day returns with mini swarm. But it looks like they sold out of it already. So anyway, get my eye on that one because it seems like a really good value. At least it was with the $30 off coupon.
I know this is going to be helpful, but on the floor, there's that.
I think those are Thunderbolt 4s. I know
They're 5s. It is a little confusing because
I didn't think Thunderbolt 5 was created or released at the time. That's an Asus.
So our creator.
It's saying Thunderbolt 4. This says Thunderbolt. Oh, wait a minute. It says Thunderbolt 5, Thunderbolt 4. Interesting. I mean, that doesn't help me. I mean, I'm not going to pull down an 80-pound computer from upstairs.
No.
But, you know, it may be off camera.
Yeah.
But I like to do everything on camera. I like to show everybody. Yes, we could perhaps run some tests in Crystal Disk Mark and all this other stuff. Screenshot it, but it's just not my style. I need something down here. And I would like to see Mini Swarm be able to support their own Thunderbolt 5 dock with their own mini PCs. I think we're just a little early. So I think patience.
Okay. So,
I thought you were reminding me about email because I forgot.
Well, no, you did that.
For our email, we have an Amazon gift card from our friend Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland, who says, hope you enjoy this gift card. It's in lieu of a super chat. Thank you, Mark, as always. Cheers, my friend. And let me go back over to the chat and see if Mark had answered my question from earlier about the status of his computer. Nick Cavery says, I love the way there's a cat food advertisement on Carey's Miniswarm page. We must have been looking at cat food on Amazon. Because that's not signed into Amazon, right? I'm not signed in, so I don't know where it's pulling that from. That's interesting. Andy says those Atom Man computers, those aren't true minis. Well, I think if you're looking at anything that's for gaming, the addition of that graphics card is going to double your size. So if you strip the graphics card and just stick with onboard graphics, you can cut the size in half. But I don't think you can do both. I don't think you get the benefit of having a discrete graphics card, but then have the size as though you don't have one. Like, we haven't come that far yet, but give it time. We'll get there. Somebody might say it's not a computer worth having if it doesn't have a discrete graphics card. That's why I say, you guys, each of you have your own sort of, you turn your nose up at stuff as not being good enough without really, it appears anyway from my perspective, that you aren't considering someone else is turning their nose up at what you're turning your nose up. They're looking at you like, if it doesn't have a discrete graphics card, it's not even a PC. Like, that's how some people see it. And if you think that's a preposterous thing to say, that's exactly what those people think what you just said was. So just, you know, food for thought. Everybody's got their preferences and their values and what they're willing to pay for and what they're not willing to pay for. You know, in Mara's case, if you offered her coffee without caffeine, she'd tell you that's not coffee. I don't know what that is, but without caffeine, it's not coffee. All right, there you go. That's an example. And then there's other people like, I wouldn't touch caffeine. You know, I enjoy coffee and I just cannot stand caffeine. So they're going to look at the other person like, you know, you're the one with the problem. They're looking at you like they're looking at the decaffeinated coffee going, who buys this? Well, clearly somebody's buying it, because it's everywhere. Anyway, regardless. Take a look here. So, you know, the issue I have with that ProArt is because it's a full-size tower, you know, we put wheels on it, it's so heavy, but it doesn't help getting it up and down stairs. So if there's a computer that I can pick up and move it with a graphics card in it, what would you call that? Back before the mini PC, we were building what's still called mini ITX. So mini ITX was, I mean, it's mini, right? And you could pick that up and take it with you to a LAN party, or, you know, move it from room to room, no big deal. And these mini PCs now are like half that size of mini ITX. And they don't run into the problems that mini ITX has with regards to, because many people are building it themselves, running into confinement issues with space and cooling it's a very common problem on the higher end models. Having all that worked out for you and having the case cut down to 4 to 6 liters in size is amazing technology, and a big difference. If, for example, upstairs Mara was using an equivalent computer that I could just tuck under my arm and bring it down here because it has Thunderbolt 5, we'd do that. But it's way too big and it's way too heavy, certainly for me, and I am not going to bring it up and down the stairs. So in my opinion, anything that we can pick up with our hands and tuck under an arm, you know, you can hold on to the bottom of it. In my definition, that's a mini PC every day. No differently really than a laptop. I think if you look, most laptops are bigger than any of those big mini PCs I showed you, but of course they do have monitors attached. That's going to obviously affect the size. But Andy says he's got an Oculink port, so an external GPU is possible. Yeah. I mean, I would rather have it internal. So again, we talk about portability. So the idea that, let's say, again, we'll use Mara's computer upstairs. Let's say she had a mini PC with Thunderbolt 5, but she needs that graphics for doing the work that she does for her thumbnail creation and other high-intensity graphic resource programs that she uses. So then maybe the only way we can jam a graphics card in there is by using a dock, and the dock needs a power supply. The power supply needs to have a power cable running down into another outlet, plus the monitor needs power, plus the mini needs power, plus you've got to connect the dock to the mini with like a cable of some kind, and then you've got to turn them on in a certain order. The dock has to come on first, then the mini comes on second, and then her desk is already crowded, so you're going to lose all that additional space. You have all that additional mess, and then if I want to take that downstairs, then I have to disconnect all those cables, and I've got to find all those plugs and recreate it up here on the desk. And I'm holding now two things. I'm holding four things. I'm holding the mini PC in one hand. I've got to have the dock, the GPU, and the power supply for the dock in the other hand. And if the GPU has a built-in power supply, or not the GPU, but the dock, the GPU dock, then I'm holding a power supply one way or another. So I guess it depends, you know, really what you're looking for. But to me, like, I think that's absurdity. If you want a gaming PC, just get a mini gaming PC or use a regular tower. But if you want it portable, then you would do mini ITX or you know, one of those mini PCs, and that's why they're there. But to each their own. You know, you're certainly going to spend a lot more money and have a lot more complexity by using the GPU dock. And for some people, it's worth it. You know, clearly they're making them for someone. I don't get it. It goes right over my head why you'd spend that kind of money, have that much complexity, that much mess, when you could have just bought the right thing to begin with. But there are people that have, like, let's say, a laptop in home. They just plug the laptop into a dock right at their home, and then everything's attached to the dock, so their monitors and everything is all hooked up, keyboard, mouse, all that other stuff, and they can just keep the lid closed and You know, they've got their speakers, they've got their graphics card. And then, oh, I got to go. So they take the laptop away from the dock, and then they go and maybe they plug it into a dock at the office, perhaps. I kind of get that. That's always been a thing, you know, since, well, geez, when I started working in corporate America in the 1990s, there were some upper end executives that had laptops with those docks on their desks. So when they came into the office, they put the laptop down onto the dock, and they were proprietary docks back then. And then it would connect up all their accessories. And then when they were done for the day, they just pick the laptop up off of the dock. It usually had like a connector, and the laptop had a connector, and they'd kind of go in like an Atari cartridge. And then they could just take it and go. But that wasn't for the average employee. That was for upper management only. Now, these docks are mostly universal, and they're not PC specific anymore, which is a nice thing to see. Dazzle55 said, we don't drink coffee. We're in the UK. We drink tea. Yes, there's nothing more British than tea. We know a little about that here in America. And something about Boston. He says, in fact, I've never had coffee in my life. There you go. I'm looking through your comments. If there's any questions I can answer, certainly happy to do so. Or do my best to provide an answer or look it up. Tony Aindow says hello. Welcome in, Tony. Someone mentioned they saw the screen blank out. I just saw that happen here. Normally, that will happen if a video driver is being installed. You know, lately, Microsoft has updated Windows multiple times. And I really think Microsoft needs to work on the interruptions to their end users. And try and do better with those updates, not having to constantly correct themselves. Sometimes when the updates come out, other software has to be updated. So since the Microsoft update for Windows, I've also received an OBS update to the OBS's update from before. So OBS has these betas that I work with. And then they go to a release candidate, and those release candidates may have 2 or 3 versions. And then they finally work out everything, and they feel confident, okay, we're out of beta, now we're at OBS, 32.0. Not a week goes by, oftentimes, and I start OBS up, as I did last night, and it says, there's a hotfix that updates OBS to 32.1. Well, what was all the beta testing and release candidates for? The whole point of that was that you weren't going to have to come out with a hotfix. So a hotfix means basically they're responding to a recent update that somehow got through the cracks with an issue. And anybody who updates software, if it's Malwarebytes, if it's RoboForm, if it's Windows, anytime you update, you've got to be very, very careful to test those updates. Worst case scenario, you end up in a CrowdStrike position. If you don't remember that, just Google CrowdStrike crash. And it took down airlines, and nobody crashed, but I mean, the computers crashed, and they couldn't get the computers back up. And if you had plane tickets on Delta, you weren't going anywhere that day. It was pretty major. That's where the testing and the quality control on the updates has to be thorough. But if the update's a security issue, the longer they wait to deploy that, the more vulnerable you are for longer. So you've got to balance the need to get a response out quickly, but you've got to still be cautious with that response, that you've checked it as much as would be considered reasonable, so that if there are any side effects to it, it would affect a very tiny percentage, not just everybody, the way the CrowdStrike affected everybody on CrowdStrike. So, I think Microsoft needs to focus on that. I'd also like to see Microsoft get away from the online account requirement. Microsoft says they're listening. Let's find out if that's true in the coming months ahead. The second Tuesday of the month will be the traditional Windows Update release. That's the only update I want to see from Microsoft in the month of April. I don't want to see another one. Sometimes it's not Microsoft's fault. Sometimes there's a hack or a threat that Microsoft needs to do what's called an out-of-band or an unscheduled update. The scheduled updates are the second Tuesday of every month. If the update's coming in and it's not that second Tuesday update, it's out of band. The only excuse they have for doing out of band is they need to respond to something before it becomes a problem. If the out of band update comes out too quickly, then there may be another out of band update to update the out of band update because they realized it was causing problems. And that's what happened last month. So enough of that. I've had enough Windows updates for a while. But what I will do is we will follow up with a video about Windows Media Installation creation tool and see if on the second Tuesday we're sure, if not that second Tuesday, then maybe the Wednesday or Thursday that follows it, see when the media creation tool updates with already having the update slipstreamed into it. Because for me, if I'm installing a copy of Windows fresh and clean, I want as many of the updates already in there as possible, but I don't want to make it myself. I'm not going to sit there and slipstream updates into it. I got other things to do. The amount of time that takes to do that and test it, I could install Windows and download the updates. If I was working on a bigger scale, if I was doing 10 computers a day, it might be worth it for me to spend the time. But if I was doing 10 computers a day, I probably don't have the time to do that. So one or the other. So if Microsoft is doing it, all I have to do is be aware, because Microsoft isn't telling us. I can't find any website that's exposing this information. So I'm just going to check it myself and let you guys know anytime that you can download a new installer with slipstreamed most recent updates in it. I mean, they just did that in March, right? And no sooner than they did that, they had 2 out-of-band updates that completely now diluted the value of that new installer I made. So yes, it took away some of the updates, but it didn't take away all of them, because no sooner than they released that, like the next day or the day after that, that's when they released the out-of-band update, which is not included in the installer. Hopefully, when the next set of updates on the second Tuesday comes out, Microsoft will update the installer either on that day or soon thereafter. That's what I'm interested in. And then we'll get all those updates. But then if they come out with another out-of-band update, we're back behind again. So this hopefully will settle in. It's not that big of a deal, right? If I take the installer we just made and we install a fresh copy of Windows 11 on a brand new machine or whatever, the idea is that I want to go to Windows Update. The only thing I want it to offer me are any missing drivers that Windows Update has that I haven't put on the machine yet, or antivirus definitions, which happen multiple times a day. So that's all I want to see. Because we made the installer with the most current slipstreamed installer from Microsoft, we'll have like 3 updates waiting now instead of 0, which was the whole point of updating the installer, was to have 0. But 3 is still better than 13 or 15 that were already embedded into the installer. So it's still better, but it's not what it... I had 2 days, that's what I'm trying to tell you. We downloaded it like the day after it was available. And then I go to install a nice clean copy of Windows with my brand new slipstreamed, updated installer, and check for updates, and it says 0 updates for 2 days, and then boom, we're right back to needing updates again. Oh, that is painful, but hopefully that's not normal. If everything works the way it should, and if hackers don't get too clever, we should be able to get that updated on the second Tuesday or Wednesday, our installer, and it should be good for the full month outside of, like I said, driver updates and antivirus updates. That would be an ideal world. And then when the next update comes out that next month on that second Tuesday, we'd repeat that. And so any updates that are remaining should be very, very minimal. But going back to March, to have To go from an updated installer to it no longer being fully updated after just 2 days, that's insanity. It makes you wonder why bother. And that's why I won't slipstream manually, because once you're done with it and you've tested it and you spent all that time creating and testing, you wake up the next morning and Microsoft's released another update. So guess what? Go back and do it again. Now add this other one. Now retest it. And then maybe you've got a day or two, and then, oh, there's another one. It's a never-ending job, and you will die before you will ever win that game. You will always be behind. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take on a never-ending task that will take me to my, it'll always need to be maintained forever. That will never stop. If Microsoft wants to pay their employees to do that, so it's only good for 2 days without any further updates, that's fine with me. It's not my money. It's not my employee, but I'll gladly benefit from it. Jim Kinney says, I took your suggestion about using contact cleaner to fix my power button, and now it works. Hey, that's awesome. Thanks for following up, Jim. I found that to be true as well, that just spraying the contact cleaner in the buttons, anytime if you have to push a button more than once to get your computer to turn on, you probably have a need for contact cleaner in that little micro switch. In fact, looking back on it, I probably replaced some front panels that had faulty switches where all I needed was contact cleaner. And the reason I brought it up was because if I didn't know that, what are the odds you know it? And if I could go back in time, when we got that computer with the broken reset switch, or, we have a Threadripper community build over at Studio A, and I have to push and push and push to get that thing to turn on. And I took some contact cleaner because it's an NZXT case, like a 710. And you can hear the button clicking. I'm like, why isn't this? I'm pushing on harder and harder, and that's not good, by the way. And then suddenly it would come on. And I'm like, what the heck? It's a fairly new case. And I ended up searching to see if anybody else has this problem. I reached out to NZXT. I said, can you send me a new panel? And they said, no, we don't make that anymore. I go, you still make a 710. I go, yeah, but the front panel's not compatible. It won't fit on the case anymore. You'd have to buy a new case. Well, I'm not going to gut Threadripper and put it all into a new case because of a stuck button. So what have I got to lose? So I got my contact cleaner out because I Googled it to say, is anybody else with NZXT cases having this? And yes. And then there's a thread of conversation, and many people said they sprayed it with contact cleaner. So okay, worth a shot. I have contact cleaner. I never thought to do it. You really want to kind of get access to that switch. So you don't have to. I mean, you can kind of spray around the outside of the button and let it drip through and hope for the best. But if you can, get the fascia removed and see the switch on the circuit board and just spray the whole thing in every angle you can, keep a rag or a paper towel handy. The contact cleaner does evaporate, but you don't want to get it over stuff. So it can be messy. And then after I did that, it turns on and turns off just fine. And I bet you the reset switch problem that we found on the Corsair 200R, I bet you the contact cleaner, now that I know this, probably would have solved it. Something that simple. Now, of course, replacing the whole front switch panel, the control board, definitely fixed it. But the argument is, how long is it fixed for if you use the contact cleaner? And so far, everything I've used the contact cleaner on, I've never had to use it again. If that changes, I'll let you know. Just like I put WD-40 in this fan back in November. I think it was November. Oh, that won't last. Well, how long does it need to last? Because as far as I can tell, it's exactly as it was new 4 months later, 5 months later, and we're still fine. So if we go to 5 years later and it's still fine, I'd say it lasted as long as it needed to, because I probably won't have this in 5 years. So, and if I do, maybe it's good for another 10 or 15. I don't know. Maybe one of the other fans that I haven't fixed, maybe one of those break first before the one I fixed. And I fixed it cheap. I did the cheapest fix you possibly could. Just some people, oh, you can't use WD-40, Carey, it's not good enough, it won't last. It doesn't need to last 75 years. So instead of anticipating all this negativity about, oh, you have to spend on, graphite and sewing machine oilers and stuff like that. No, you don't. You absolutely don't. Just try it. Try the easy thing first. That may be all it needs for the remainder of how long you have left with that computer. And it's quite possible that other fans in that computer that are factory sealed will die before the one you put WD-40 in. So that's why I make these videos, as I show you guys. I go, look, it's still working. I got no dog in the race here. If that fan starts making noise, what am I going to do? Cover it up? I'm going to say, oh, I guess our WD-40 fix didn't last after all. But how long did it last? That's the question nobody can tell you. They can't tell you it's not going to last 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or 20 years. It's just this generic knowledge that says if you use a better oil, it'll last longer. That doesn't stop your hard drive from crashing or your power supply from dying or you from downloading a virus. There's lots of other ways your computer could fail. It's like somebody's eating healthy and exercising, but then they get hit by a car. I mean, there's only so much you can do, or you get an illness that has to be treated at a hospital that has nothing, there's nothing you could have done to prevent it, basically. Sometimes that happens. So to be focused only on one little fan because of WD-40 also equally makes no sense to me to sit there and focus on that like it's the most important thing in the world. But it also doesn't make sense to go out and buy specialty oil and do all this extra care when it's totally unnecessary, at least without proof otherwise. So when we get the proof that that fix isn't good enough, then we'll know, at least for my use case scenario in this computer. And if that day never happens, then why would we go through all this extra effort and anxiety over what oil we're using? So there's what people say, and they could even, point to links with scientific studies, but that's not a universal truth for everyone all the time. And it may not even be a universal truth in this scenario, even 10% of the time, that it's overkill, over the top, overspending, overdoing it. Some people like overdoing it. If I didn't have so many computers, it'd be fun to overdo it. Unfortunately, I'm just trying to keep up. The last thing I needed was a noisy fan going on during a live stream. I'd have to either replace the computer or I had to buy 3 new fans at $20 a piece. $60? Or you could buy the pen oiler, wait 3 days. What am I going to do in the 3 days? Just listen to the fan for 3 days until I get the pen oiler? I got WD-40 laying around. I got an X-Acto knife. I pop it open. I spray it. We're done. It's been done for 4 months. I don't know what else to tell you. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we making everything so complicated without any evidence or proof to justify that amount of effort and time and money? I can't get behind that. If I did, I'd probably be out of business because you can't make any money that way. You can't make your customers wait. They're not going to be happy. And you're not going to have enough time to help enough customers at the end of the month if that's your normal process. You won't stay in business. I'm just telling you, it's not possible. You'd have to have employees going out working while you're at home playing with fans. Jim Kenny said his case where he used the contact cleaner was a Corsair 200R. There you go. I'm curious, how does contact cleaner fix the switch when it's not a sticking problem? Well, I'll tell you what. You're asking about forensic electrical engineering? That's well beyond my wheelhouse. My advice to you would be, if you have a switch where you're pushing the button and nothing's happening, or sometimes it happens, and you verified everything's plugged in, the wire's not broken, you can even put a meter on it, and you'll see when you hear the button click, The the continuity test isn't turning on. Then get a can of contact cleaner and spray it, and you let me know. You can tell me how that's fixing it. Okay. I don't worry too much about the forensic part of things. When it comes to forensics, that's just all research. I don't get paid to do research beyond make it work. And if it's a problem that's very common, if I have customers, multiple customers calling me with the same problem, it's in my best interest to find out why, right? So I can nip it in the bud. Most of the problems I get these days, it's a one-off. So for example, last week, one of my customers reached out and took a picture of the computer monitor and said, when I came into work this morning, this is what the computer said. And it said, your system has encountered an uninspected error, and we're creating a log and you'll need to restart. And I can't remember exactly what it said. And I said, well, that's interesting. And if you Google this error, and it's only the one computer in the office, all the other ones are fine, and they're all the same. So this doesn't make any sense. So you Google this error and it says, well, you could have corrupt system files or a recent update you might want to uninstall, or you've got a bad driver, often video cards, or you've got a bad power supply, or you might have XMP or overclocking causing this, or you could have heat issue, or like it just basically said rebuild the whole computer. It's so useless. Or it could be bad RAM, or it could be one of the modules isn't seated all the way, or it could be your SSD isn't in all the way, or it could be that you've got corrupt files on the SSD. So you might want to run DISM and check disk and scan now to look for those. And then you also might want to replace your video drivers, and you also might want to go into the BIOS and reset defaults and make sure you have the latest BIOS. And you also, I was like, okay, I don't know what to tell this customer right now. So I said, okay, that's weird. It never happened before. Let's see. 2 days later, customer last week emails me again. Came in this morning, or I stepped out of the office, went back into the office, and now that computer says the same screen again. Computer wasn't doing anything. It's just idle at the desktop, and it puts the monitor to sleep. That's it, just like every computer in the office. I said, okay, that's twice in 2 days. That's really weird. Let's just keep an eye on it. Today, Friday, it's been at least 4 days. I'm trying to think if they contacted me this week, because that was last week. And they said, here's a picture of the computer screen. It's the exact same thing again. It's a black screen, and it says, see if I can pull this up. Your device ran into a problem and needs to restart. We're just collecting some error info, and then you can restart. And it stays at 0% complete, like it never moves. And then at the very bottom of the screen, it says, boy, it's so tiny. And I'm so glad they took a picture of the screen for me, texted me so I could, first of all, they don't have to type it all in. And secondly, I don't have to tell them, I need to see the bottom of the screen. Stop code, critical process died. That's a 0xEF error. And the Google response on this is very useless. Now, the reason I mention this is because you say, well, what's causing that? I don't know. I just told you all the things it could be. That's the only PC. It's built with all the same parts as all the other PCs in that office, and it's the only one that has that problem or has ever shown that problem, and it never did before until last week. And it's been there like 4 or 5 years. I think it's a 9700K, an i7, 9th generation 9700K. Rock solid. All the other computers are rock solid. And no other customer I have, and nobody on the internet, is coming to me asking me how to solve this problem. So do you think I'm going to spend a whole lot of time in forensics trying to figure this out? I don't care. I just need it working. But we can't figure out what's triggering it when nobody is using that computer. That computer gets used only on Fridays. So when the employee came in this morning, that was what she was greeted with on her screen, because I always have them leave the computers on. Otherwise, that computer is just on and idling at the desktop. And apart from maybe Windows updates or virtual file management, stuff like that, it could be anything. And since I can't make the error happen, it's not like, hey, every time I click on this or every Tuesday at 2 o'clock it does that. It's random. It's intermittent. And boy, intermittent problems are very difficult, because let's say I go 30 miles across town to pick this computer up, bring it back here to diagnose it. I've already diagnosed it remotely. I've already done a ton of driver updates and Windows cleanup, and did the DISM command and the scan now. I've updated network card drivers, video card drivers, whether it needed it or not, replaced the chipset drivers, verified we have the latest BIOS. I spent a good 45 minutes remotely on that, just doing maintenance, and then we'll see what happens. Still doing it. Not a lick of difference. None of that work did. So did a memory module go bad? I don't know. I'd have to go out, pick it up, put it on the bench, run Crystal Disk Mark on it for about 4 hours. Unless an error comes up, then what? I could change the power supply, then turn around, drive for 30 miles and return it, and just wait, because I can't be sure if I fixed it. You just have to just wait because it's so random. So forensically, there's no return of investment for me to spend that much time on a customer's problem that only one machine has, and I've never seen it before in my life. I can't spend that much time on it. I mean, that might be fun for some people, but for me, I've got other things. I've got to get things done and get the computer back. So the other thing is this customer has a couple of spare computers they don't use anymore. They're all the same. So why don't they just swap it out and then say, hey, Carey, we're going to move that computer to the side. We'll stick it in the closet, and the next time you're here, just pick it up and take it. What if it's not the computer? What if it's a Windows update? Now, why is that Windows update causing a problem on this one computer and none of the, I don't know, but it's possible. What if I took that computer, wiped it out, did a fresh, clean install of Windows 11, get it all configured for their office again, and brought it back? Would that fix it, or would that also be a complete waste of my time? Either way, I got to drive all the way out there, pick it up, drive all the way back, work on it over a weekend when they don't need it. Although this computer, they only use it on Friday. So I suppose I'd have a few days and then drive it all the way over there to drop it off and then come all the way back. What are the odds that I'm going to get a message, screen's still doing it? What am I supposed to do? On the other hand, if I had 3 or 4 other customers or even 3 or 4 other computers at the same office having the same intermittent error message, it would be in my best interest to figure out what's causing this, because then any amount of time I'm investing will be paid back every single time I know the fix. When it happens, I know exactly what to do and move on. Then the return on the investment makes sense. At least that's the way I see it. Jaden Hudson with a $5 super chat said, I have been subbed to you since 2013, and I'm glad to see you're still helping the community. Well, I'm glad to see you're still a part of the community. Thank you for supporting the channel and your generosity. And Peter in the Netherlands with a €2 super chat. Thank you to Peter as well. You guys rock. The Greeniest said, we have an Ace Magic K1 AMD system doing the same thing. The black screen and the crash. I've also done all the updates I can think of, but it still has the issue. Though that's interesting, because if you're having that same black screen with something caused your computer, like that's a hard crash. The systems I'm working on are Intel onboard graphics 9700K. Your AMD will be onboard graphics with AMD. So it doesn't seem like it'd be a graphics driver. That sounds more like it's Windows Update related, doesn't it? And if it is, then me driving over there and picking it up and working on it, even the work I did remotely, was all a complete waste of time for something I can't fix. Now, we could try uninstalling some updates and waiting, but I'd rather not do that. If it was crashing every day and it was creating a problem, or if the computer was used every day, it's only used on Fridays. And again, they have spare machines. So if it was really trouble, and my understanding is, once they restart the computer, it's good the rest of the day. So it's not like they're losing any work. The computer's just idling, doing nothing. And then for no reason that we're able to identify, I mean, it definitely has a reason, but we haven't been able to identify it because it's too random. So I'll keep you in the loop on that when I figure it out. But it may just be waiting on that second Tuesday update that fixes it, for all I know. It's as good a shot as anything I can do. Thomas MacT said there's members helping members in our chat room today, which is exactly what I want. He says, Carey, the chat you wanted is back. Nice. That warms the cockles of my heart, whatever cockles are. Yeah, I guess you guys were working together on solving a Firefox issue or something. I haven't really been following that. Chris Garrett said, Carey, I have a very stubborn printer. Sometimes when I click to print something, my printer just sits there like a bump on a log. It's an Epson printer. I would check to see if there's a firmware update on the printer, whether or not you're printing through USB or Wi-Fi or a network cable. These can be configured, these things, to go to sleep, and then sometimes they don't wake up properly. It may be best to just leave your printer off. I don't know how often you print. Like, we don't print very often here, twice a week. So it makes sense to just shut the printer off. Why have it wasting power, even trickling power in standby, especially if you're having standby wake-up issues, when it's just so easy to just hold the button in when you're done printing until the machine shuts off. And then when you're ready to print, just reach over and turn it on, give it a second to initialize, and it'll probably work every single time. It should be able to wake up from standby, but the question is, how much effort do you want to put into that? Maybe some Google searching and Reddit searching. Maybe it's a known issue with a specific model of Epson. So when you want help like that, you need to say, I have an Epson model number, blah, blah, blah. This is the problem. It is connected via Wi-Fi, or it's connected via Ethernet, or it's connected via USB. This is when the problem started, or I've always had the problem. And then based on that, we can start building the answer for you. But the make and model, that model, you told us the make, but we don't, Epson makes 1,000 different models of printers over the last 25 years. Well, maybe not 1,000, but it's a lot. And some have idiosyncrasies to the model, and we just have to Google it. The Greenia said for his crashing, he tried uninstalling the Adrenaline software, downloaded the latest version in hopes it was a chipset driver or video driver, which is more or less what I did on the Intel side. I put a new video driver on, I put a new chipset, thinking alike here. And yeah, it didn't make any difference for me either. So I don't know what it is. And I'll tell you something else I did is I cleared out all the event logs. I erased everything out of there. So that way, if it happened again, I don't have as many to look through. So I can go back to this morning, like let them use the computer today, and later on tonight or over the weekend, I'll log in remotely and I'll go look at that event log, which is all sorted by date and time. And I'll go down to Friday morning and see if I see like a big red exclamation. I'm sure there's a few in there that are nothing to worry about, but probably one in there, maybe, hopefully, will give me a file name, will give me some more information, because it's like playing a game of Pictionary or something where you're just guessing and the person can't talk to you. Like I need I need more than hand gestures. I need more information for this kind of a problem. And as I mentioned, if I figure it out, I'll let you know. But it may just be a Windows update, in which case you're just wasting your time. You might as well just wait for the update like the rest of us, and it'll solve it like it will for the rest of us. One can hope anyway. We'll see what happens. There's Edward Bass joining us, and John Downey saying hello. Gary Tatum was talking about the contact cleaner is not designed to fix sticky. It's made to clean the contacts. So when they, yeah, so anything gets between the contacts. You know, Arizona's a dusty environment. Sometimes on the circuit board, the flux that's used isn't cleaned up very well. That can also attract dust. The resistance between when the switch makes contact, there could be resistance building up just through the tarnishing of the metals if they didn't use a good quality solder, if it's not well sealed. There's all these caveats. And so, well, C-cleaner isn't C-cleaner. Look, I mean, technically contact cleaner is C-cleaner, right? Anyway, so contact cleaner, because of the way it works, it's kind of like brake cleaner. It's not normally used to, it's not intended to remove sticky residue, but it does. You know what I mean? Even though that's not what it's designed for. You absolutely, just as it's sort of like a varnish, if you want to think of it that way, of an evaporating type of solvent, I guess would be a better word. Then that solvent could eat away at the stickiness too. But yes, that's, if I had something that was sticky, like a switch, I would probably use something like Goof Off or Orange Peel, stuff like this that they make specifically designed to more efficiently eat through that. But if it was like, let's say it's in between the switch and the switch housing, and you can't really get in there, and you can't figure out how to take the switch off so you can see the micro switch underneath that it's connected to, you could, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything to spray contact cleaner in it. Just keep pushing on the button, work that contact cleaner in, and yeah, it'll probably solve the stickiness problem. It won't make it worse anyway, so there's no harm in it. Mark Gaines said he put the Corsair iCube back in instead of going with the air cooler. And he said he's had no problem so far. Amazon refunded me for the loss of the air cooler that never arrived. But he plans on swapping the Corsair iCube for one that has no screen and no RGB. Hey, maybe just leave it alone. I mean, if it's working good for you, maybe what I would do if it were me is say, if this happens again, I am simply going to pull this cooler and replace it with one without RGB. But if it's been working, leave it alone. That would be my advice. I appreciate the update. I was kind of curious how that was working out for you. Jaden Hudson said, I had an issue with an end user having the critical process died error at random. It ended up being a slow memory leak in a program they'd installed. Found it in the event viewer. Well, see, all these computers should have all the same software. And I didn't see anything when I logged into it remotely that drew my attention. But, I mean, I appreciate knowing that that was the case for you, and it's possible the person that uses that computer that only comes in on Fridays, maybe they put, I don't know. Sometimes the employees like to put something like Spotify on their computer, which isn't something, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't support it. And if they ask me, like, is it okay if I put Spotify on this for myself? Because I like to wear my Bluetooth headphones and while I'm working, I don't care. It's fine. But it could be something like that. But most of the employees don't change anything on the computer other than the size of their font or their resolution or their wallpaper, and that's about it. But every once in a while, especially the younger the employee is, the more likely they feel that boldness to just put on their own personal comfort stuff like Spotify. But again, that's not necessarily a negative thing. I don't see any reason why Spotify would ever be something we have to restrict. Napster, on the other hand, different story. Times have changed and it's okay. We're not jeopardizing the company with DMCA copyright lawsuits and payments, penalties, because you want to listen to some music. Spotify doesn't do that. So anyway, I'll have to just kind of keep that in mind the next time I look at it. So it's Friday. They're using the machine now. I'll wait till later on tonight after business is closed, and I'll remote into it. If I can't remote into it, it's likely because it's crashed. Because I don't have a KVM on it. I only have instant house call. So if Windows crashes, I can't log in. See, now there's where an IP KVM would come in handy, because if Windows crashed, I'd still be able to restart the computer with like a Jet KVM or the Nano KVM, et cetera, et cetera. But we've never needed it before. And I'd still have to drive all the way out there to plug that in. It's a long drive just to take a KVM and plug it in and then turn around and drive all the way back. If I have to, I will, but they do have spare computers. They could just put a spare computer there if it really bothered them. And then say, hey, Carey, come get this one. It'll sit in the closet for months before we need it, so take your time. So we have other alternatives that are a lot more convenient. It's not mission critical when you have spares. So I don't know why they're not going to one of the spares. I guess because it's only used on Fridays and it's not crashing during work. It's just that when that person starts, and they start in the morning, Friday morning, they're seeing it. And the only way I would know is I would have to keep checking the online status of that computer. And if I see suddenly, that it's no longer online, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, and all the other computers in the office are online, I know their internet didn't go down. But there won't be anything I can do about it. I mean, other than having the information, they could tell me that the next time they're in the office and tell me, which is what I've asked them to do, is say, hey, let's just keep an eye on it. Anytime that happens, please grab another picture, send it to me, and just let me know. And then we're going to try and find a pattern. Or it's possible Windows update happens and all of a sudden the problem just doesn't happen anymore. I don't know what else to do. Sometimes, these are the problems that are the most frustrating. But that's also why this customer has spare machines. So if it's really bothering the customer, they can simply swap the machine out with a different one and then deal with it another day. It still doesn't explain why it's just this one computer. If it were a Windows update, why is it only affecting one computer in the entire office? I can't answer that logically either. They're all the same. So, yeah, it's weird. Glenn's Music joins us. Peter mentions there's a little bit of grease in regular contact cleaner that doesn't exist in brake cleaner. Okay, good to know. I mean, I wouldn't want to use brake cleaner because it's smelly. But I'm saying if that's what you had laying around your house and you wanted to, you could use it. The only reason I put it out there. But no, you should use contact cleaner for sure. It's also, contact cleaner is less likely going to damage the paint if you get anything on the case. It could discolor the paint. I always tell you to pick a corner somewhere and spray a little bit on there. Somewhere where you wouldn't notice, where people wouldn't see it, and just see if there appears to be any fading or paint removal. If so, don't use it. But if it passes that test okay, then you go ahead and you can spray it willy-nilly to your heart's content, and make sure you give it enough time to evaporate before you turn the machine back on. So whether or not it's conductive or not, you're going to get your best cleaning of the contact cleaner doing its job if you give it time to evaporate. If you're doing a couple quick little sprays, it evaporates almost instantly. But if you're really getting in there, you might want to give it a good 10 minutes to make sure it's completely dry before you try it out. At least I would. Nathan wants to know, I've got a GTX 1070 8 gig. Is it worth upgrading to an RTX 5070 12 gig? Well, for some people, it absolutely is worth it. And for other people, it's a complete waste of money. So I'm afraid that's something you're going to have to decide. I can't tell you what something is worth, and only you can tell me what you're willing to pay. So for one person, let's say an eBay auction, you might be willing to pay a certain amount of money. And the person you're bidding against is also willing to pay a certain amount of money. If everything had the same worth to everyone else, then you'd all peak out at the same price, right? You'd say, I'd pay $120 for this and not a penny more. And if we were all in agreement to that, then auctions wouldn't work, because no one would ever go above $120. But the fact is, the reasons why auctions work is because somebody's willing to pay more. And that tells you that it's worth it more to one person than it is to another. And I can't tell you what has worth to you. If you gave me, for example, a GTX 1070, or you gave me an RTX 5070, I would simply tell you I don't want them. I have no use for them. It's more drivers, it's more power, it's more noise, it's more fans. Keep that out of my system. I'm not a gamer. I'm not playing games. I'm trying to get work done. And that's a much, much more fun game for me, is fixing, what's wrong, figuring out what's wrong with it, how to fix it, how to do it quickly. And then I get paid instead of, paying money. If I had an application where I was making money that required a discrete graphics card. So maybe I've got drones that do like topography mapping. That's a good money job right there. And you need a pretty heavy duty graphics card and CPU to process that, to map it all out. Or maybe I'm doing AutoCAD, slice files, Blender, stuff like this. Then the question is, well, which video card would be most worth it for me? But that has nothing to do with you. See what I'm getting at? Should I get the Hershey bar or should I get the Kit Kat chocolate bar? Maybe a Three Musketeers or a Milky Way. Which one is worth it? It's an unanswerable question. You're the only one who can answer it. So you have to figure that out. And you can tell us if you thought it was worth it, but we can't tell you. Not with any accuracy. So just so you know. It'd be like saying, how much food do I have to eat before I'm full? Which food tastes better, the chicken or the steak? I don't know your preferences. I don't know how hungry you are. I don't know how much you normally eat. No one can answer these questions but you. So I appreciate the question, but some are just about personal preferences and values. That unless we know each other really well, I can't speak to you with regards to what your values are. If I got to know you really well, if you're my brother or something, I kind of know what your values are. But otherwise, it could be anything. You have to tell me. Margain said, I'm getting an AMD timeout error on Project Zero. So what helps me with that would be the actual error message, word for word, verbatim. An AMD timeout error means nothing to me. I have no idea what you're trying to describe. But if you can take a picture of the screen and email it to us, or you can tell me word for word what that error says, I could be more helpful to you. But you can't leave words out, because there are similar error messages that have those same two words, but all the other words that surround it may be different depending on the type of timeout error. So unfortunately, with that, you've got two words. You've got AMD and timeout. That's not enough. I need the rest of the sentence on that error. And then with that, no guarantee I can help you, but that would at least help me to understand what specific timeout error you're getting. John Downey said, yeah, brake cleaner has acetone in it, so you definitely don't want to use it. Well, I'm saying you could. If you were desperate and you really needed something and you had brake cleaner and you took proper preparations for any overspray and protecting the paint, it would do the job. Sometimes, I guess the best way I could explain it to you is what I have found in this industry is home users will do the most hacky MacGyver duct tape fixes that would get you fired in corporate America. And then they'll turn around and brag about how they outsmarted everybody by just using something you weren't supposed to use that fixed it anyway. When you're a home user, you can do that. And I'm simply saying, it's your computer. And if you're having an issue and you need that computer to come on and it's not coming on and you don't have contact cleaner and you don't know where to go to get contact cleaner, maybe you live in a rural area and it's a long drive or you're going to have to order something and you're going to have to wait for it to arrive and you need that computer up now, but you have some brake cleaner in the garage, it might make sense for you to do that, and it might just fix it proper if you take the proper precautions, and it could permanently fix it. So this idea that you can only do something this right way, that's true in corporate America. There are policies and procedures that have to be followed because your job is on the line in some cases, in most cases, when you go outside of those lines. But if it's your coloring book and your crayons and you want to color outside the lines, there's no harm in that. If there is, it's on you and it's only on you. So I mention it because there's a way somebody does something at home to their own stuff, and then there's a way that I do things for customers. Now, for me personally, with few exceptions, I do everything the same for customers that I do for all of you and myself. The whole WD-40 thing it's not something I normally would do, but just out of the sake of, proving if this is a good or bad idea, let's just do it and see what happens. It's my computer. The only person it affects is me. I would not do that to a customer's computer. That's all I'm trying to get across. So too often on the internet, it's like, oh, you needed to use the graphite oil. No, I didn't. Oh, you have to, do this. You have to. No, I don't. When you are working for somebody who's paying you and they tell you how to do it, then you have to do it that way or you risk not getting paid. But if it's your computer and there are other alternative, less kosher means that likely could get the job done, maybe it's a little messier, maybe it's not the right way, but if the end result is the same and the end result only affects you and nobody else, and you have knowingly and willfully made that decision, I'm all for it. I wouldn't withhold information from you because I think you're not an adult enough to make that decision. That's condescending and rude. I'm going to give you all the information. I'll let you know the risks, and I'll let you know why we don't do that in corporate America. And you'll say, well, that's all well and good, Carey, but I'm not in corporate America, so I don't care. Well, and if you don't care, then you have all these other options that could very well lead you to the same solution. Or not. But maybe worth trying if it's something that you've already got, a tool or, a cleaner you've already got. Could you use it? Yeah. In this case, you could. Is it the best thing you could use? No. I could have used graphite. I used WD-40. The end result's exactly the same so far. In corporate America or for a customer, I would not have used WD-40. So, if I were to use WD-40, let's say, for example, customer's got a fan that's making a loud noise. Customer says, this is driving me crazy. And I don't know what fan it is. Is it the power supply fan? Is it the case fan? Is it the CPU fan? Do they have a graphics card with fans? I don't know. So I got to go look at the computer and identify which fan is the problem. So what am I supposed to do? Bring every kind of fan with me in the car when I go over there? So, in this case, the customer had a power supply fan that was making noise. And it's like, well, for right now, we can put some WD-40 in there. We can get another power supply on order, and we're just going to get you by so you don't have to listen to it. When the new power supply comes in, we're going to switch it out. Even though with the WD-40, that power supply may continue to run and run and run, in the most recent example, the power supply was already 12 years old. So, I mean, it was $45 12 years ago. How much more life do you want out of it? It's been 12 years. Let's just go order another one. But in the meantime, let's stop that noise with some WD-40. You can continue to use the computer. And then when the new power supply comes in, I'll swap them out and we're good to go. That's the difference. If it was my power supply on my computer, maybe I would have stopped at the WD-40 and said, if it starts making noise again, I'll switch out the power supply. But how cheap do you have to be on a $45 power supply you've had for 12 years? At some point, you should just have gratitude it lasted 12 years and gladly replace it with something more energy efficient, potentially quieter, and has a new warranty. And you don't have to do any of this work and wonder. You know, if anything goes wrong with that power supply, it's not your problem. At least during warranty, just get it replaced for free. So in corporate America, that's very important. As a home user, maybe not so much. Mark says, Carey, it says AMD software detected a driver timeout has occurred on your system and there's no error code. Huh. Let me take a look at that. AMD software detected that a driver timeout has occurred. There's no error code. See what it says. Usually caused by unstable drivers, corrupted shader cache, software conflicts, or GPU instability. The most effective fixes, corrupted cache is a very common trigger. If you go to the AMD software, settings, graphics, advanced, and then select reset shader cache. That's what it's recommending you try first. That sounds good to me. Second thing is update or reinstall your AMD graphics card driver using the AMD cleanup utility first to remove everything. You said you already did that. Remove software conflicts. Tools like MSI Afterburner overlays or even AMD Adrenalin itself can conflict. Some users fix the issue by uninstalling AMD Adrenalin entirely and letting Windows install a basic driver. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I mean, if that fixes it, that's not a proper fix. You can try disabling hardware acceleration in your browsers or apps like Chrome, Firefox. Many users report the timeout happening while they're watching YouTube. You can also disable AMD Crash Defender or MPO, which is the multi-plane overlay. These features sometimes cause instability. You can increase the TDR delay. This gives the GPU more time before Windows resets it. Of course, looking at temperatures to see if your video card is getting hot. It could be a Windows update. It could be, again, if it's happening in a browser when it's happening, if you're watching YouTube and it happens, it may be that the video playback in the browser, what I call that, the hardware acceleration, just turning that off. That's been a problem for years and years and years. And of course, check all your power cables, make sure everything's in there nice and tight, nothing's loose. That's a place to start anyway. We are almost at 2 hours already on today's broadcast. So I was really hoping I'd have one of those mini PCs here today, but unfortunately, the mail is not on our side. The good news is they're nearly here, and so we should have the Origimagic. Why not? And then, of course, the Atom Man G1 Pro for next week. So probably that'll be Sunday and Friday show. That buys me, what is that, a good 10 days to try and find something else or to follow up. There's some stuff I think we've got coming I've forgotten about, and I'll have to check in with Mara to go through some of the past conversations we've had with companies and follow up, like what's the status of this. Or I might, do a little shopping on Amazon or talk with the folks at Minis Forum, see if they have anything else they want us to review, because they're always a pleasure to work with. They're always enjoyable to work with and very eager to send us things. I would like to hear more from Ace Magic and Cam Rui. I've been pretty interested, especially seeing that they're a top seller right now on the most popular mini PCs that you can buy right now in America. They're right up there, and Geekom too. Although we haven't heard from Geekom in a long time, maybe we buy something and use it for review here. It just has to be, we don't have much money in that way to spend like we used to, so we're just trying to reinvest in the channel and make that money go further. A computer build is $1,200–1,300. We can't cover that. And what do we do the other 29 days of the month? But with that same $1,200 or $1,300, if we broke it up into $300 purchases, we'd probably get 3 or 4 videos out of that. And then if we can turn around and then resell those after we're done, we're still going to take a loss, right? But that'll at least maybe give us enough money to buy 1 or 2 more computers and then sell those, and maybe have enough to buy 1 more and then sell that one, and then it's a downward spiral. We're not growing at that point. We're just sort of staying afloat but sinking, but staying afloat in the hopes that something else, in buying us that time will come in, which I was just so busy trying to keep up. It's so weird to be in this position. It's surreal. I'm like, wow, it's almost like a higher power is telling me to take a vacation, whether I like it or not. But let's hope it's not a permanent one, that's all. I don't think the PC building hobby will ever go away. I mean, there's still people that do ham radio operating, and it's not the large community it was. It's much, much smaller. And my fear with this lull in the PC industry is that a lot of people that were maybe starting to become enthusiasts give up on it. If you were an enthusiast before all this happened, you're still going to be an enthusiast after. So that community isn't going away, but it's also not growing. If anything, it'll be shrinking. And, that community could be around for the next 50 years. I don't know. But look at ham radio. Look at how big that community used to be 50 years ago compared to today. Especially with a younger generation, they don't even know what a ham radio is, how it works, or why you'd want it. So we end up sort of in the community that is left is usually people that have been around for a long time. Not a whole lot of newbies starting in ham radio. There's some, but not like it used to. I think the PC enthusiast, like the building community and stuff like that, is going a similar path. We're seeing it, I wouldn't say shrink, but it's not growing. And if it's not going to grow over a period of time, then if there's not, the question is how many people move on for whatever reason or another versus how many new people join in. And so you have 10 people joining in for every 20 people that are dying off or leaving or losing interest. And it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller over time until eventually it's very, very niche. But I don't think it'll ever truly go away. But boy, did we hit our heyday in 2019, 2020. Ooh, interest just peaked. Everybody wanted to learn more. And then all of a sudden, within a couple of years, the same people seem to have gone. I don't know where they went, but they went somewhere and they're on to the next thing. So what are you going to do? We were talking the other day. I used to like this content creator, David Dobrik. Whatever happened to that guy? He was huge on YouTube. Well, it turns out he's still huge. It's just over on Instagram or something. It's not. I don't do that, so I have no idea what's going on over there. But apparently he's doing better than ever. He's just not YouTube anymore. So things pivot and change, and sometimes you don't even notice it until it's gone, and you're like, house is awfully quiet. I just realized. What are the kids up to? Where's the dog? What's going on? Something suspicious. It's too quiet. And it's after it's been quiet for a while that you realize, oh, wait a minute. I shouldn't be here enjoying the quiet. I should be worried about it. I was just scrolling through YouTube the other night, and one of my favorite funny people from Saturday Night Live is Kate McKinnon. I just think she's hilarious. And her and Amy Poehler are doing this podcast. It's a little short clip, and Amy Poehler says, what do you do like when you want to relax and laugh? What do you like? Do you go on YouTube? And if so, what kind of videos do you watch? And Kate McKinnon says, there's this guy that is enthusiasm on two legs. You never see his face. And he's an Australian guy, and he clears drains. And you think, why would you want to watch somebody clearing clogged drains? She says, this guy, and she starts doing the Australian accent, which, I can't do it very well. All this drains chock-a-block, look at this. Look at this. Here's a ripper. Isn't there? We're living the dream. Is there nowhere else you'd rather be than right here, right now? Look at that water flow through the gully. Isn't that a beautiful, amazing sight? Listen to it. Look at it. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now with this sewage? It's like so disgusting. And he sounds genuinely enthusiastic. So I go to YouTube and I type in Australian drain cleaner, whatever it is. And sure enough, this guy's video pops up, and he is so happy and excited to be clearing out sewage drains and parking lots that aren't draining after a rain, or restaurants with grease traps that are clogged up. And he's never angry. He had one where a tenant was dumping garden soil into the kitchen sink and into the toilets, plugging them all up, leaving a little note to the landlord going, who's got the last laugh? And he comes in there and he's like, oh, why would you do this? And he's like, oh, and he gets his hand in there. He starts pulling out the dirt and looking at it. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we'll get out the jet. And this is my $2.50 Amazon nozzle that he puts on this motorized generator that shoots the water out at 5,000 PSI. And he's like, yeah, we'll fire up the bloody jet. Oh, it's beautiful. This guy is so excited and he's so happy when he clears a clog. You would think that, never mind the smell of the stuff, or that he's wading in it he's got rubber boots and protection on, but still, he's so excited. I totally get why Kate McKinnon was recommending that, because it's so enthusiastic. He's so happy. It's pure childhood. It's like child joy. If you're not aware of it, you should definitely check it out, because I happened to be talking to Mitch the other day, and I said, did you know about it? He goes, oh, I've been watching that guy for a while. There's two guys in Australia that are really popular. And like, you already knew about this and you never told me about it? And the algorithm never once in my entire history on YouTube has even so much as recommended or shown me that guy's video, despite how popular he is and all the followers that he has. Never once did the algorithm say, oh, you look like you have a sense of humor and you like to fix things. Maybe you might want to watch this plumbing video. Maybe I would have. But the algorithm never once offered that to me. So you have these really big popular YouTube channels that nobody knows exists outside of their own community, that apparently the algorithm is deciding who gets to be aware of it. So if you don't know to go and look for it, you'll never know it's there. And it's maybe what I need to do is I need to make a video recommending other content creators that I watch. Because I'll bet you there's a bunch of people I watch and you've never even heard of them. And not just on computers, but you know, Project Farm with their tools reviews. I understand if there's, you know, like Adrian's Basement and stuff like that, where we're talking about electronics and games and stuff and nostalgia, that you would be more than likely aware of it. But there's some that are similar, like clearing a block drain is very similar to how we fix electrical problems. Electricity and water, they flow the path of least resistance. They're very, very similar in how they work. When you have a short circuit in, you know, we use different terms, but essentially it's like having a leak in traditional plumbing, and you got to find the leak where, or you got to find where's it blocking, where's the electricity stopping. So oftentimes if you watch electronics repair, they'll use like a heat gun, and they'll measure typically where the electricity is hitting and it's not going through the bad component. That component glows really, really red hot on the heat gun. Not always, but most of the time. And you know electricity is coming in, but it can't get out. And then you can put a meter on that thing. It could be a diode, a capacitor, whatever it is. Put a meter on it and go, okay, yeah, this is bad. And nowadays, they're little teeny tiny things, and you desolder it and puts a new one on, and it's all fixed. What caused it to go out to begin with? Don't know. Bad part, power spike, who knows? Replace the part, see if it comes back again with the same problem, because that would mean you've got another problem earlier on. Plumbing's exactly the same way. If you have a clog here, and so the water's flowing through this side of the house, but not that side of the house, then the trick is figuring out, first of all, where's the clog more than likely at? And this guy teaches you as he's doing it. That's what I really like. He's saying, well, you know, if we know this pipe has got to go this way, and we know it's going to be out here, that means, you know, if he turns the jet on, you can often hear it running underground. And you can say, well, if the pipes usually run straight, let's keep walking this way, and he'll be really quiet, and you can hear it getting louder and louder, but you're just seeing a field of dirt and grass. And he's like, you hear that? The pipe is right under here. We can hear the water, the jet water running, but we can't hear it anywhere beyond that point, just using your ears, no special tools. So he gets the shovel out and he starts digging, and there's the pipe. And then there's a bunch of tree roots, and it doesn't upset him. He's like, oh, you know, the beautiful Australian outback is so amazing. Look at this beautiful tree. You know, look at the outback here. What a beautiful day it is today to be out here, to be so lucky to be able to do this kind of work, and such a beautiful place. But you see all these roots that come from all these trees and all those bushes that are so beautiful and lovely and just amazing, and just Australia at its heart. They've gotten into the pipes, and you know, and the jet will cut them away. And he doesn't see it negative, he sees it positive, like not darn these roots. It's like, well, yeah, because you've got all this beauty. If we took away all the beauty, we wouldn't have the problem with the roots. But it makes sense. And this is how we found the problem, and here's how we're fixing the problem. So it's educational at the same time. You get to see the diagnostic, the problem, the diagnostic, and the repair. It's some of those repairs, he has to, it's not very simple in that you could have multiple clogs, or a consequence from clearing the clog that, you know, you opened up Pandora's box. Anyway, now all the algorithm is doing is showing me clogged drain videos is all that appears in my feed now. I'm like, okay, enough. Just because I looked at a few of them, they never recommended them to me before, and now that's all it's well, not all, but I mean, the feed is filled with them. So ridiculous. He sounds like, you remember Steve Irwin? Crikey, look at this Crocodile. Crikey, I'm a lummox. Anyway, he sounds like Steve Irwin. Oh, look at this. Oh, she's a beauty. He sounds just like him. Like he's talking about an animal. You know, he sees this really disgusting clog. Oh, look at that. We found it. And he'll stick his hand in there and pull this lump out and be like, oh, look at this beauty. Oh, she's beautiful. You know, it just turned British. And he's just like admiring it. And it's not sarcastic. Like he seems like he's genuinely admiring that. Isn't that amazing? Isn't she a beaut? John Williams said, I went on a service call for a furnace not working. The sewer had backed up and the sewage was up to the 3rd step from the basement. Roto-Rooter to the rescue. Yikes. But that smelled good. Bajan guy said he grew up in Barbados in the 1970s. He had a neighbor that lived 3 houses away that had a ham radio. Yeah, well, I had friends in the 70s. I knew adults that had ham radios. I had the cheaper version of that in the 70s, a CB radio that I purchased from Radio Shack. But, you know, people talk about putting boosters and amps on them and stuff, and going against the FCC. Breaking the law. But, I don't remember, I can't recall the last time I've seen a ham radio. I can look around the neighborhood and I've seen some houses with ham radio antennas. I recognize them when I see them, but I don't know if they're actively being used or if they're remnants of a, you know, no one's just gotten up on the roof and taken it down. I don't know. I don't much care, to be honest with you. I mean, it's their interest. I know people that collect albums, they collect stamps, they collect coins. I don't personally care about any of that. I don't have much interest in it. Shouldn't be offensive to anybody that I'm not interested in it. It's just not what I do. And, you know, this is a computer channel where we talk about Windows-based computers, upgrades, repairs, in the hopes that that was what you were looking for when you found me. But, you know, no disrespect intended with regards to other people's interests and hobbies. It's just observation. Seeing a similar pattern, you know, making the comparison with the PC enthusiast community where it kind of peaked and everybody was really super interested in these videos, and, you know, the viewership was much higher, the interaction was much higher. It's half of what it was, just universally across YouTube. And you can attribute that to many other things that have come and, I wouldn't say gone, but have never been able to reach that peak of popularity or being embraced by the culture, the way that ham radio did, the way that CB radio did. Certainly truckers are more than likely to have a CB or maybe even a ham radio. However, it isn't what it used to be, and I don't think it'll ever return. And I say the same because I think that's what's happening in the PC industry. I think it's following the same, like if you could chart that out, you would, if you said, okay, well, we take the introduction of the ham radio and then the price of it being more affordable and the interest of it in the community, and then everybody knows what it is and everybody's got one. I mean, the same could be said for a landline telephone. There's still people that have those. There's people that'll never give it up. But it's not like they're coming back in popularity. They're just, some people won't let it go. And it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. If it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't have to. And, you know, I've got a friend of mine that's a prepper. He has extra rations of food and the ability for storing clean water, all of this survivalist stuff. And I told him, I said, you know, he's been doing this since I've known him. He's been in this sort of survivalist mentality I met him when I was 12 and he was like this. We're in our 50s and he's still doing the same thing. And there's never been any reason for it. And I told him, I said, you're either out of your mind crazy or you're a genius. We'll just have to see which way it plays out. Because if there's an apocalypse, I'm coming to find you because you're ready. I'm not. But if there's never an apocalypse and there was never any need to be ready, then you're nuts. So I wouldn't dismiss what somebody else is doing as unimportant because it just might turn out. Tomorrow could change. All of that, you know? Dennis wants to know if I've looked at any of the OpenClaw models. No, because OpenClaw is used to activate AI, right? So OpenClaw is like the agent. So you have AI, which let's call Copilot AI. And then you have an AI agent, which is the thing that acts on behalf of what the AI is saying. So for example, if AI says to fix this error, you would run this command and that command, you would have Claude go ahead and then respond by activating those commands on your behalf as your agent, your AI agent. And you could have Claude, you know, check your Gmail, and if certain messages arrive, to do certain things, reply, don't reply, CC, forward, delete, acting as your agent based on how you told the AI to look for certain emails. So the AI, without the agent, it can make you aware, but it can't do anything. With OpenClaw, with the agent, you can have it do something like erase your entire C drive, which, by the way, Google it. A lot of people learn the hard way that you shouldn't be giving these AI agents just complete autonomy with your systems unless maybe you're on a virtual machine or you're on something that you're knowingly and willfully willing to lose it, because the OpenClaw maybe takes things a little too literally sometimes. I'm not a developer. So when people talk to me about, oh, have you read the news about the latest update for Windows? That's not an update for Windows. It's a beta update. I don't support beta. I don't do that. So these people that are using OpenClaw are not your average computer user, and it's mostly being used by industry, not for home users. And the home users that are using it now can't speak the same language as everybody else, or the majority, I should say, of computer users. Everything you speak about it goes right over their head. You might as well be talking in another language. They don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to them. And even if you could explain it, they'd still wonder why. Why would you spend all that time when you can just click the mouse and do it yourself? And so the people that are this level of sort of developer or researcher, that they're running beta software and they're reacting to, oh, the latest, you know, insider preview for Windows does something to the taskbar, and they tell everybody about it. That's not what you are necessarily going to get, because it hasn't been released except to insiders. And if you didn't want that, why are you an insider? And then if you're not interested in that, why are you following insider content if you're not an insider? And I think the reason people do it is because they're not aware. They didn't know. Oh, this isn't for me. This is for people that beta test. Yeah, if you're not a beta tester, it might be interesting to see what current condition a Windows update is, what state it's in. That doesn't mean it's going to be released that way. If you're just there to eat, you don't care what's going on in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So they're there cooking something, and then they're coming out of the kitchen and going, hey, they're baking a new cake in there, but I've got to tell you, I've tasted the dough, and it's just disgusting. And you're like, ooh, well, I don't think I want that cake. But then the chef will come out and say, would you please shut up? You tasted the dough before I was done. What are you doing? You're scaring everybody away. Let it cook. Let me finish my job. When I have a finished product, then you want to let people to know if you like it or not. But you're screwing me over by taking something that I haven't finished making and then reporting to everybody whether or not you like it or not. That's what beta testers do. These people that are working with OpenClaw, there's a lot of experimentation. but mostly it's for industrial use. It's not for a home user, not yet. So I want you, before you ask me a question, ask yourself, knowing the work I do, does a customer call me and pay me to tell them about beta software, the latest Windows updates, or to set up an AI agent for them? I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. I don't design websites. I don't do any of that. I think many of you keep forgetting what I do for a living, and that this video channel is me sharing with you, let me tell you what I do for a living. And then you guys go, well, do you ever do this? It's like, well, have you ever paid anybody to do that? What do you think the odds are anybody's paying me to do that? So nobody that I know of outside of industry is paying for any development. That's something a home lab user would do. That's just burning time, and they have a hobby, and then they're the ones making the videos. And then the non-hobbyists, or I should say the non-enthusiasts, don't realize what they're watching is intended for other hobbyists of that level that the viewer likely has no interest in, but thinks that that's something they need to have and they don't have a choice. I mean, some of you may find this hard to believe, but I had a customer who was so fed up with HP. Now that part I know you believe. And they called me because, can you fix my HP? HP, support had my wife in tears. We lost everything. They didn't make it clear that by resetting the computer we were going to lose everything, and now we've lost it all, and it still didn't fix the problem. And can you help us? Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're only. I go, well, first of all, I could build you a computer much better than that old HP you've got. He goes, yeah, but I've got an HP printer, and I've got HP speakers, and I've got an HP monitor. I go, so? He goes, well, doesn't that all have to be the same? No, it's never been that way. Wait, what? Are you kidding me? I go, I'm not kidding you. He goes, I went to Best Buy, and they're like, oh, you want the monitor and you want the printer? And I go, yeah, that's because you're at Best Buy. Right? And you want it all to match, right? So if it's all made by the same company, aesthetically, cosmetically, it probably looks good together. But no, you don't have to have everything made by the same company. You can have whatever keyboard you want. You can have a Logitech keyboard, and you can have an Asus monitor, and you can have a custom-built computer, and you can have THX Klipsch speakers. Mix and match to your heart's content. I thought it all had to be for that. No. So I've been with HP this whole time for no reason. I go, yeah. I mean, you didn't know. Nobody told you. It's not, a lot of people think everybody knows it. They don't. If nobody ever told them, where do you think they're going to learn it from? So, it's like, well, let's get this information out. Let's clear up your misunderstanding, and let's move forward with getting this solved once and for all for you. So they had two computers, and of course they never heard this information before, so they were a little skeptical, but they also trusted me from watching my videos, and they said, let's do one and see how it works out. So I did the one, and he's like, you've got to be kidding me. This cost me less than the HP. It runs much faster than the HP. It's quieter, and all the problems I had aren't here anymore. Let's go ahead and do my wife's computer too. Or it was the other way around. So they just started with one to see if I was telling the truth. And they've since been back for upgrades 2 or 3 times since, to get a newer processor, to go from Windows 10 to 11, that kind of thing. So what a lot of you consider to be basic knowledge is not basic knowledge to the mass majority of computers out there. And when they're watching YouTube videos, they don't sometimes realize they're watching developer content. And they're never going to be a developer. They don't even know what a developer is. Something you use to expose film? I don't know. Or they think that, this thing that the insiders are looking at it's coming. It may not be coming. The insiders are saying things like, oh, you can't use OOBE, bypass NRO anymore. And they know just enough information to know what that means, and enough information to go, I'm upset, I'm going to go on social media and I'm going to just chew out Microsoft. It wasn't publicly released. It was a beta. That's you don't understand what you're watching. So, yeah, OpenClaw. It's just I'm not a developer. That's all I can tell you. Any questions you have about developing? Like even my optimizer, I don't develop it. That's Nick over at D7X Tech. I don't do it. That is not what I do. If I do a little coding for fun, it's very minor. It's nothing. A 6-year-old could do the coding that I do. It's not what I enjoy. I don't want to sit there for hours and hours and hours writing code. I also don't. My book, I've only written the one book. I hate writing. Hate it. I like reading. I like other people to do the writing. And in much the same way, I like fixing computers. A lot of people hate it. So they're like, well, you do it. Or that guy that cleans the drains in Australia. People don't want to get nasty and dirty and gross, and he loves it. So let him do it. You know what I mean? Everybody's happy. So yeah, I've had companies reach out and say, what do you think about showing, OpenClaw running with Claude or whatever on our mini PC to show off how you don't have to buy tokens? And I'm like, I don't do that. I have no interest in it. It's not for my audience. I intend for these videos to be for the average user, not to be just for the enthusiasts. This is never what this channel was out to be. And I'm not going to let viewers, not that it's being done with intention, but sometimes viewers come in and try and manipulate the channel to what they want it to be. And sometimes I feel like I'm pushing back, going, that's not what this channel has ever been. It's not what this channel will ever become. And if that's the kind of content you want, you're not going to find that here. There's no precedent for it. I appreciate suggestions like, hey, you should write some code. Well, okay, I should make a video on writing code. I appreciate the suggestion. I don't want to. That's the bottom line. Hey, you want to come to my party? When is it? It's Thursday. Oh, no, I can't go. Oh, you got something else planned? No, I just don't want to go. All right, anyway. So yeah, so that was Dennis that asked. So I don't have any interest in developing. Just could have said that right out of the gate, right? I just want to justify. Mark Gaines said, are you talking about Drain Cleaning Australia with Bruce? Yes, Drain Cleaning Australia is the name of the YouTube channel, and Bruce is the guy's name. Of course, Bruce is a very, very common male name in Australia. It's almost a stereotype, but that is the name of the channel. It's Drain Cleaning Australia. The guy is very enthusiastic. It's hilarious, and it's educational. Tom Jackson saying hello from Denver. Hey, welcome in, Tom. Dennis said, I was asking about OpenClaw because you and Doug were discussing it. Well, it's been in the news, right? And some people, the point Doug and I, the reason we were discussing it was to explain what it is, because we know we have viewers and listeners that keep hearing about OpenClaw, and they're like, what is it? That was the only reason we brought it up. What is it? Not how to use it. Just so you know, when you read articles or you see videos on OpenClaw, this is the same conversation we had about Bitcoin. What is it? People won't shut up about it. A couple of years ago, people don't talk about it as much. But what's cryptocurrency? Why is it every video I turn into is about cryptocurrency? What does that even mean? So what we're doing is we're trying to break it down for the non-enthusiast. My channel has always been intended to give regular users more knowledge and control over their computers so they don't feel so powerless or afraid of it. It's always been to remove the intimidation and show how easy this is. So if we start attracting enthusiasts that are far more advanced than the intended audience, then it doesn't occur to them that there's people that don't know what's an OpenClaw and why do we keep reading about it? What is this? Is this something I need to be worried about? Is this something that I should be interested in? So if we can explain what it is and who it's for, then they can decide for themselves from that point forward.
This is an OpenClaw.
That is an OpenClaw for sure. Are you walking sideways and eggs?
OpenClaw.
Well, I'm just glad you didn't use the cat for the example of an OpenClaw.
I should have.
Those aren't claws, those are murder mittens. You said I had an email?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, here we go. Phone's being a little slow. Nick Caffrey sent $10. He says, I love this community. Right on. Hey, look, I see people in the community talk about ham radio and CBs. I don't have any interest in it. Like, I don't care. But I love to see you guys talking about what you care about with each other. I think it's great. My lack of caring isn't disrespectful and it shouldn't be offensive. I just don't care. If I want to sit here and talk about country music all day and you love rock and roll, you might feel like, you know, don't want to hear it because you don't have any interest in it. But on the other hand, that's what I love about the community is you guys can have discussions with other things you have in common besides the computer stuff. I'll try and stay to the computer stuff because that's what I know. But all that other stuff, for the most part, I'll leave to you guys to explore that in the community. I think it's great, even if I have no opinion on it because I don't care. I'm glad you found birds of a feather and can share other like-minded interests. Yeah, I phrased that pretty well. Like-minded interests outside of this channel, but in our community, I think is wonderful. Even if I feel like you're excluding me, it's okay. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the router situation with Congress saying that routers, any new models of router that have to be sent for FCC approval will be subject to a bunch of terms and conditions before they'll be allowed to be sold here in the United States, unless it's made here in the United States. And to the best of my knowledge, there is no router made in the United States. There's a misunderstanding between American companies like TrendNet or a couple others, where they engineer the designs, but then they get contracted out to be manufactured in Asia or Vietnam or Taiwan. And that's the problem. It doesn't matter who drew up the schematics. That's irrelevant. If you drew up the schematics in Sacramento or wherever, Los Angeles, where your company is based, but your company contracts out to another country for the manufacturing of that product, that's the problem. So as far as I know, there isn't a router made in the United States. I could be wrong, but I don't think there is one. And when we talk about routers, we're not just talking about the home routers. I mean, we're talking about the big $50,000 routers that corporations use. Cisco doesn't make a router in the United States. So it should be, they used to. It should be interesting to see how this plays out though, because Either they need to bring the manufacturing back, or everybody's going to be buying last year's model of router because those are still always legal to buy. So as long as the company already got their licensing approved, they can continue to make that model that was licensed indefinitely. On the other hand, I got a notice from Netgear that the router I have at Studio A was going to have end-of-life support. I think it said in May, and it would get no more upgrades from Netgear anymore. This was a $500 router 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And so even in the face of Congress, announcing this because of security issues, Netgear is still saying, yeah, well, we're going to end of life it anyway, regardless of Congress, which means you're going to have to buy a new router, or you're just going to be without updates, which is what Congress is trying to secure the United States, both with jobs and with firmware and product design that can be verified that it's not being used against the United States, in the background, behind the scenes. So there's a little paranoia there, but also job creation. So I was really surprised that Netgear says, yeah, well, too bad, because we're gonna, your last update will be in May on this router. Your router will continue to work. It's just not going to get any more updates ever again. So you can either continue to use it and take on those risks as time goes on, or you probably should consider replacing it. But if you want to replace it, you will not be able to get any brand new model of Netgear without it first going through all of these new prerequisite requirements. And if it doesn't pass those requirements, then you're just going to have to stick with a prior year's model, something that was previously approved, that was grandfathered in before the new law took effect. So it wouldn't be much of an upgrade in theory. I mean, if I already had a high-end router, even to this day, it's a high-end router. And now the difference is mainly just wireless. The router was a $500 router, for crying out loud. So what are you going to do? The general rule of thumb is if you have a router that's 5 years old or older, you should replace it, period. But people aren't doing it. I'm not having any problems. I'll wait until my identity is stolen and I lose everything I own. Then I'll find out that I should have replaced it. That's the American attitude. And people are like, oh, I don't have any jobs. Well, that's because you sent all your money to Asia where you buy all your stuff. So there's no jobs here because you're sending all the money you're making. You're not even keeping it in the US. You're sending it off to Asia because you got a good price. In the meantime, more and more people are going without work and don't have the money no matter what the price is. It could be $2. If you don't have $2, it might as well be $2,000. You still can't afford it. So I understand what the administration's trying to do. They're trying to find some incentive to bring manufacturing back, bring jobs back, keep US money in the United States and stop giving it to, potential adversaries that could use that very same money against us. Not to mention the security factor, which is the excuse they're using. And it'll just take another administration to completely reverse it and undo it anyway. So it's probably temporary. But anyway, it should be interesting to see how this plays out with regards to router inventories. Are routers going to start getting hard to get? Or will the manufacturers just keep making the same models from last year? Since they're already grandfathered in, just keep selling you brand new models from last year's design. Because that's cheaper for them. Otherwise, the shelves might be bare and there won't be anything for you to buy other than used routers or things you're getting off of eBay. That's why I'm saying it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because your next big price hike might be the router. If suddenly there's more demand than there is supply, because supply is being choked on the new models, the latest and greatest, by the paperwork and the bureaucracy of this whole thing the FCC is doing, the Federal Communications Corporation. What it stands for, right? Is it a corporation? Anyway, bottom line is, could go either way. Could be routers are the next RAM and SSD shortage issue because of this. I think what the government is hoping is someone will get off their butt. Some American will get off their butt and start a damn company to start making this stuff. because they'll see there's lots of money sitting on the table and nobody's going to go get them. It's like you can't get off the couch. Yeah, there's a pile of money over there, but I can't get off the couch. They bring the money to me. No. So there's some incentive for people who get that investment going, get those factories fired up, and whoever does it first is likely going to do financially really, really well here in the United States. Whether that's RAM manufacturing, SSD manufacturing, motherboard manufacturing. We've already got CPU manufacturing. Intel and TSMC are expanding like crazy here in the US. A lot of investment going into that. And there's some discussion of other Taiwanese chip manufacturers coming to the US, because if China invades Taiwan, the world is screwed over with regards to any sort of, we sort of put all of our eggs in one basket because it was cheaper, and we're not really thinking ahead. Like, what's going to happen if something happens to that basket? Think about the pandemic and look at all of the supply chain issues that we had because we're not doing anything here anymore like we used to. And it makes us dependent on these other countries. We have to be friends with them and we have to cooperate with them. We have to give them our money. And then instead of giving it to each other and helping ourselves grow, we're helping them grow. And then they can turn around and use that money, if things turn sour, in investment to essentially take us over. They can choke us off to the point where you don't have a choice. So I think it's important for every country to be self-reliant, and at least to some level to be able to not be so dependent on supply chain. Otherwise, we've been through the pandemic together, you see what happens. And any way that you can reduce it, you can't eliminate it. I'm not saying eliminate it, but you could certainly reduce that dependency and at the same time give people more opportunity for work, promotion, to make money. The more money they make, the more money they can spend. Spend that money within the US, that creates more jobs in the US. So those people will make more money and they can spend more money. That's the theory of it. But so far, nobody's doing anything that wasn't already being done before all of this. You know, TSMC was still building the factory. It takes a couple of years. Intel was still building 2 more foundries here, is my understanding. That was already started. It's not like you can just start it up tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out. It should get interesting though. But right now, everything's going up. CPU prices are up, motherboard prices are up. We already know about the RAM, SSD, and GPUs. What's left? What's left? Power supplies and cases? If we can't get here in the US, if we can't get this manufacturing here, it won't matter how cheap everything is when you don't have any money. You still won't be able to afford it. And I think that's where we're headed, and I think that's what they're trying to prevent. Like, it's pretty clear the direction we're going, and that we're going to go right off a cliff at some point. If we don't start changing direction, at least a little bit, postponing that, the edge of that cliff a little further into the future, we'll worry about fixing it later. Anything is an improvement than where we're headed right now. And, you know, I'm not an expert on all this, you know, stuff, but that's my understanding of it, and I completely understand it. I can't tell you if it's right. I don't know. But I think that's the idea. And of course, if you're not in the US, this probably doesn't matter to you. And we do have a worldwide audience here. And we do have a lot of viewers that live outside of the US. And none of this has anything to do with you guys. Phil Stott said the FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, not corporation. That makes more sense. Thank you for that, Phil. I couldn't think of the word. It's what happens when you work off the cuff, no scripts, no rehearsals. So it's not always about, you know, absolute solutions. It's about making improvements. So if you have, let's say you've got a leaking pipe and that thing's leaking 6 gallons a day, and you don't have the means to stop that leak, but you can do something to slow it down and reduce it to just 1 gallon a day. Does that mean it's not worth doing in your mind? Because in my mind, if there's something you can do today that makes a difference, I don't live in a world of absolutes where people say things like, well, you could put a car alarm on your car, but they could still tow your car. That's not what we're here. We don't live in a perfect world. There's no such thing as a world that I'm aware of where absolutes exist. So when we're trying to make ourselves more self-reliant, the idea isn't that we're trying to be, and this is, I think, a big misunderstanding. We're not trying to be 100%. It's not what I said. We're just trying to make an improvement and start moving in that direction. You can't, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. It's not like you have to eat the elephant, all of it, all by yourself right now. You don't. But you do have to start taking some bites. So I would say this idea of absolutism, it needs to go. I don't know where people are getting this, where they're like, yeah, but it doesn't solve the... It improves. Everything we do is about improvement, I would hope. And if in any way you interpret that as being an absolute, I can't think of one example in anything we've done in humankind, in any invention or any improvement we've made with tools in society, with laws. Okay, you can have all the laws you want, people still break them. It's not an absolute that, well, we prevent all bad things from happening because we made it illegal. That's not how it works. We should know enough by now to realize if we're aiming for improvement, we should encourage that. Why wouldn't you? Why would you just dismiss it and go, well, that's not absolute? There's no absolute other than death and taxes. That's it. So let's be reasonable. Otherwise, nobody will ever do anything. You do it because it makes an improvement. And then somebody else will come along and improve that. And someone else will come along and improve that. And your whole life has been this way. If you just look around you, nothing's ever done. So, but absolutes, you've probably never seen an absolute in your life. So this idea that it's not worth improving because it's not an absolute, it doesn't solve everything. I don't get it. I don't know where that comes from, but I see it all the time. I see it online. I see it in comments. I'm like, what are you people talking about? What do you have as a precedent for this idea that there's a perfect solution to anything? There isn't, other than death, I suppose. There is no permanent solution. It's just we're working on improving. And if you don't think it's worth improving, I don't know what to say. I'm kind of speechless. Andy wants to know, with regards to the routers, does this apply to cable modem routers? It does, yes. It's got the word router in it, doesn't it? It applies to all routers, but your cable modem router more than likely is provided by your ISP. So your ISP will have to either continue to use older routers that were approved for a longer period of time than they were originally planning on, or they need to manufacture them themselves, which they probably aren't going to do. Or the companies they're buying from will change and they'll buy from a company that does have a newer model that got through all the approval processes. They won't have as much choice as they have today. But that's not your problem. Like, unless you bought your own cable router, most people get it from their internet service provider. That won't change. That's your internet service provider's problem, not yours. But if you have your own, then you'll be in the same position, right? If you want to replace it with a newer model, any new models that haven't already been approved, they'll have to go through this approval process, and some of them are not going to be approved. So then your selection is going to be reduced. The price is going to go up as a result because of supply and demand. And it affects us all here in the United States the same. It's not different for you than it is for me, or your ISP, or the corporation down the street, the big company that hires 10,000 people to come to work every day. We're all going to face this. So the answer is really for somebody, for some company preferably, to just open the damn factory here. There's no reason Netgear can't have a factory here. There's no reason TrendNet, TP-Link, or ASUS can't have a factory in the United States. They don't have to shut down their factories in other countries. But if you want to sell in the United States a router, and you want the approval process pretty much guaranteed, then you're going to make it here. And the FCC has been very clear on this. It's not rocket science. So if these companies refuse to do that because there's not enough profit in it for them, then all of us are going to pay more and have less selection as a result, until one of us decides we've had enough and we do it ourselves. Or more than likely what will happen is we'll get a new administration, right? Because that's going to happen regardless. And then that administration will reverse that. Just like the mileage rating requirements that were instilled by previous administrations that have been removed by this one, maybe then put back again. Everything in the US, you know, with this stuff is all very temporary. It's 4 or 8 years of this stuff and then it changes. So we'll see how it plays out in the meantime, because that's of no console if you're really needing a router and you're in the middle of this issue, right, where inventories are low except for old models, and new models are few and far between and expensive. Telling you it'll get better in a few years probably isn't really being very helpful. But that does tend to be the pattern of things over and over and over again here in the United States. Dennis mentions the FCC saying temporary waiver from the FCC's office allows updates, including security patches and compatibility fixes for previously licensed routers, are valid until March 1st, 2027. So we'll have a new administration, right? No. 2028. We'll see how it works out. And they've reversed track on this stuff before, so I'm not too worried about it, but it's definitely something just to be aware of. Just keep an eye on it. Andy mentions he doesn't think the FCC ruling will stand for long. Yeah, and that, you know, the Supreme Court could step in and change things too. So we'll see. Check my email. Tom Jackson? I don't have anything from you, Tom. Not yet. Scott Messerschmidt says TP-Link are going to stay. TP-Link is the most sold router in the United States. Nobody outsells TP-Link. So the problem is for TP-Link is if they risk losing their leadership position in the marketplace because they're having some difficulty getting the licensing from the FCC on their new models that are coming out this year. More than likely, TP-Link has the money and the backing to essentially convince and promise to make a factory within a certain time frame. So they'll get that authorization from the FCC to go ahead and sell their new models here under the promise that they will commit to building the factory here in the US by a certain date, or by explaining why it's not possible to do it here. And if they can't do either one of those, then TP-Link ain't going to stay. Not in the United States. TP-Link sells routers in other countries. They got a lot of baskets, but the U.S. market's a big one for them, and they have a massive incentive to not want to give that up to one of their competitors. So, and again, and the law could be revoked or found to be unenforced. I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens here in the U.S., but it's what people are talking about, and it's not had any impact at this time. If it does eventually, I'll let you know, but it may not even get that far. Or it's going to get a lot worse. That's really helpful, isn't it? Yeah, well, we don't have any control over it unless we want to start our own router company, which, by the way, any of us can do. Any of us can do it. It's just we don't want to. No, just put that on somebody else. And as long as you want to keep putting it on somebody else, then you can't make any of the shots. You can't call those shots. When you start getting involved, you can start calling the shots. Otherwise, we can just sit here as spectators yelling at the team and the coach. I don't know what good that does, but maybe it makes you feel better. Yeah, there are the open routers, and that's really iffy on the law. That's kind of a loophole. We'll see how that works out if you wanted to, you know, sell a computer that can be used as a router, an appliance. That's still unclear. Enterprise sector is not affected. I think they are. I thought I read that the enterprise sector, everybody was affected. If it's a router, I don't think it's just consumer routers. It's a national security issue is the excuse. And the national security issue doesn't come solely from consumer routers. In fact, some of the big issues that they cited were only on Cisco routers. What was the one they cited? I can't think of it. It never affected a consumer router. It was basically all a Cisco router issues, I recall. So if that's what they're saying, then they're saying two different things. You can't tell me as an example to why this is justified is because of all these enterprise routers and then say, oh, but enterprise routers aren't affected by this. That wouldn't make any sense. Although it is the government, so I wouldn't put it past them to not make any sense. But I think if it's about national security, it's about routers in general, not about just the consumer ones. But I could be wrong. And he says, yeah, it's just an FCC ruling, so it's very easy for that to get changed. We'll see. Yeah, but it is what it is. I'm not involved in the decision-making process, and I don't know all the details. I know the gist of it. So I'm not an expert on this at all. And if you want to learn more about the details, if that follows your interest to that level, I encourage you to do so. But for the rest of us, it's just this is what's going on. This is what's being talked about. It's subject to change. And my understanding of it is subject to change too. So we'll see how it plays out for all of us. But just be aware that's going on. And it could affect you in the future, or it may have zero effect at all, depending on how it plays out. It's like somebody's going up to bat. Are they going to hit the ball? Are they going to hit a home run? Are they going to get on base? Are they going to walk? Are they going to strike out? All I can tell you is that somebody is getting ready to stand at home plate and swing at the ball. But if the person in front of them strikes out, or some other team member gets out, then his turn at bat won't happen as scheduled. So he may not even get the bat at all, depending on, there's a game happening. I'm telling you, you may not be watching this game, but it's being played. And I can't tell you, nobody can tell you which team is going to win, or when they're going to score, or if they're going to score. So let's not take this information further than what we have, other than whatever deep dive you want to do beyond, what I'm expressing here. Again, I'm trying to give people the gist of information for the average user. If you are involved in the FCC in some way, or you have ingested this like candy, every detail and every word and every paragraph, I'm not here to have that discussion or debate. I'm here to introduce people to the concept, to understand what it is and what's going on and how it could affect you. And beyond that, we move on to other topics. When it gets down to the nitty-gritty details like that, I'll worry about that when it becomes relevant and useful. But right now, it's still very speculatory, regardless of the nitty-gritty details. It's all subject to change. And so far, I'm not aware of any router manufacturer being denied any approval process at this time, but that it is intended. That's all. That's all I know. Martin says it's easy to just import the parts and build the wireless routers in the US. Yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science, but are you going to do it? That's the problem. These people that have the ability, these big corporations, they don't want to, because they see that as being less profitable. Heaven forbid they do right by the community and they make a little less money in order to ensure that they have a longer sustainable business in the country. They're only looking, these days, the investors and the people that run the companies are just looking at this quarter. They don't care about consequences. They really don't, because a lot of these decision makers will be out of their positions by the time those consequences take effect. They'll already have their golden parachute, or they'll already move on. So CEOs these days, they don't stay with companies very long. And a lot of the damage the CEO causes for immediate financial gain, you won't see that damage for 2 to 3 years. And that CEO is already gone and cashed out, and the CEO won't lose a penny. But those people who lost their jobs, look at Flint, Michigan and what happened there. Some people made a lot of money, and the rest of the city just kind of collapsed. All of the restaurants and all of the supporting businesses that were there supporting the workers and the automobile factories, that all just collapsed in on itself because somebody made a lot of money from that collapse. And there are people today still struggling with any opportunity to find work in that city. It's tough. And that was done so somebody could make a lot of money. It just came at a lot of other people's expense. And that money they made, they can't make it there anymore. They burned that bridge. So now they got to go find another bridge and go burn that one next. I don't know how you sustain a company that long. If you just keep burning bridges, aren't you eventually going to run out of bridges? But what do I know? Tom wants me to check my email again. Oh, thank you for the reminder, Tom. No, I'm still seeing nothing from you, Tom. Hold on a second. I'm shouting out to I don't want to yell in the microphone. To see if she got your email over to the channel address. But anyway. Oh, you sent it? He's sending me Starlink makes routers in the US? In Texas? Oh, yeah. Well, they make, right? Elon Musk pretty much makes everything in the US. It takes somebody from South Africa to be a true American. A patriot. I gotta love it. So let's hate the guy, the one guy who's doing right. Let's all hate him. That's the American way. Well, companies like Netgear and Linksys are US based. Their manufacturing typically occurs in Asia. CNC routers. Oh, well, that's a whole different kind of router. Are made in the USA. So Starlink, is that it? So so Tom, this thing you really desperately wanted me to read was that Starlink makes routers? So I'm not quite sure what the point of this is. It doesn't change anything I said, which is basically no routers are made in the US. So Starlink router, it's not like you're going to buy a Starlink router unless you have Starlink. You're not going to buy a Starlink router and hook it up to your cable or your DSL connection. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty proprietary thing, very specific to a very small number of people that use Starlink. Most people, I guess it depends where you live, but the bulk of people are living in big urban cities, and those have infrastructure built into the ground for cable and fiber and copper. You go out and live in the country somewhere where people are spread out, and the entire population of the rest of that whole state doesn't even add it up together come anywhere close to that one big city. And you'll say, well, 3/4 of the state is on Starlink. Yeah, 3/4 of the surface area. But 3/4 of the population are not. So I think that's the big difference. So it's interesting though, and I'm glad to hear that, Elon stays true with his American patriotism in making SpaceX here, making Tesla here, the battery factory, right? What was it called? The battery plant he opened in Nevada. I think he just opened one in Texas. I mean, we need more, in my opinion, more patriots like that are business mind, that know better than to outsource it. And I think that sets a great example. Well, politics aside, you think of the amount of job creation and revenue he's responsible for. Can you imagine if we had, 50, 100 more business leaders like that found that same priority in domestic manufacturing and job creation? I mean, that's how it used to be here 50 years ago, but it's all changed now. So anyway, politics aside, it's just until one of us gets up and does something about it, waiting on somebody else is likely not going to change much. And the government will keep trying to find incentives to get people off their butts. And people just aren't going to get up when we just have ourselves to blame at that point. It's nobody else's fault. We're just as capable as anybody else, and we don't want to do it. So then the blame needs to be on us individuals, not on that CEO or that person that I don't like. If you don't like them that much, why don't you do something about it and become their competitor and take them out of business? That's what happened in so many businesses where somebody actually got off their butt, which would be, for example, Dave Thomas used to work hand in hand with Harlan Sanders at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And they just couldn't see eye to eye anymore. And he said, you know what? I'm done working for you. So Dave Thomas went off and he's tired of fighting. And he said, good luck with your Kentucky Fried Chicken. And Dave Thomas went on to found Wendy's. The vice president at McDonald's wasn't really upset. He just saw he was offered a money-making opportunity to leave for no reason, just because you could make more money, and help Burger King out. And he took all of the knowledge he had about how McDonald's works and the process of creating the food and the cooking and the distribution and the purchasing, and took all that knowledge with him when he left, and betrayed, from the owner of McDonald's perspective, betrayed him, and then became his greatest competitor, creating the Whopper against the Big Mac and in all the things that have gone on. And then there's all these stories we don't tell where somebody just didn't get off their butt, and we don't know any better because we don't have it. They just dealt with it and said, it's good enough. And now we as a society, we don't have that as an option. And we're all guilty of it. Like, most of us are guilty of just letting somebody else do it, and then not realizing how much better our lives could be and how many things we don't have, because the person that could have brought that to existence, just decided it's not worth it. It sucks. Like, ignorance is bliss. What you don't know, if you never had it, you can't miss it, right? So if you never had your crystal music player that plays on a quartz crystal from 1975, because the person who invented it can't be bothered to actually go through the work it takes to make that something, then we just think of how great streaming is, or we think of how great CDs are. The things that people actually invested the time and money and effort into that we ended up having is all we know. And the people who never tried, we don't know. We don't know about all those ideas that could have changed our lives. How many people just had this great idea and just did nothing with it? We'll never know. So the government's incentivizing these corporations to make these investments into this, to help improve the independence of American life by having more stuff made here like it used to be. We used to make things for other countries, and now it's flipped over time, and that just kind of happened naturally. And they're trying to forcefully adjust it, and that may be the problem, is it's being too forced. So there's a lot of pushback. But well, what can you do? Bajan guy said, I never knew or ever heard of the Dave Thomas story at Wendy's. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stories like that. That's one that comes to mind. But there's so many stories. If you go and if you're interested, the relationship between Hershey and Reese's, or between Hershey and Mars, Frank Mars and Mars Candy Company, or the Curtis Candy Company. Oh, there's some betrayals, and they all knew each other, and at some point even worked with each other and were partners, and then split. Do you know what M&M's even stands for? Do you know what the two M's are and what they mean? Because one of them is Mars. Last I checked, Mars is not Hershey. It never has been Hershey, and they've always been a competitor. So imagine a Hershey product. Are M&M's a Hershey product? I think they are. With the founder's name of your competitor on the product. And who's the other M? And what's their relation to Hershey? It's not an H on an M&M. Who are the two M's on the M&M? I'm telling you, one is Mars, their competitor. I mean, this stuff is fascinating, but it takes a certain kind of person with a certain kind of drive. When Frank Mars, was it Frank Mars, didn't want to pass his business on to his son, and his son said, hey, I helped you build this. And his father said, no, you didn't. He goes, well, give me 30%. Come on. He goes, no, I'm not giving you a penny. It's my company, son. It's not yours. So the son went off and founded his own company in England. Then his father died, and the company that his son founded was doing really well. So he took his money and he worked really, really hard, harder than ever, to build up enough money to buy his father's company back and rightfully put it in his own name where it should have been to begin with. This sheer willpower of that is so inspiring. He could have walked away. My father screwed me out of a company, that I helped him build. I got my own company now. I don't need him anymore. We'd have never known any better. But no, he took his success. It became far more successful than his father ever was, enough so that he could buy his own company, his father's own company, back from the people he sold it to. And they made money on it. It's so inspiring what human beings are capable of if they just get off the couch and find something that drives them and don't let anything get in your way, no matter how dire. You can imagine the emotional roller coaster of your father essentially telling you, I'm not giving you a penny. And then for him to have the guts to say, if you're not giving me a penny, I quit. And he's got nothing to go to. Not only does he quit, he leaves the United States, starts over again somewhere else in Europe, and ends up founding his own company, and to heck with his father and his father's company. And then you think, well, maybe when he dies, I'll be in the will. Maybe it'll all be set right once he dies. Nope. Nothing. Well, then I'll just go and buy it myself. Wow. I love that. I love that so much. So David Graham, I guess, Googled it. Forrest Mars Sr., so it was Forrest, not Frank. Forrest Mars Sr. and Bruce Murray. Now, who was Bruce Murray? Is it Bruce Murray? The Murray sounds right, but the Bruce doesn't ring a bell. Who was he? What was he known for to have his M initials, his M initial on the M&M? What significance did he play? We know Forrest Mars and the Mars Candy Company. Yeah, Gerhard Huff mentions another one, the dispute between Edison and Tesla, very well known. Absolutely. And also against GE. And Edison, was it? Or Westinghouse? competing to deliver power to the World's Fair for the very first time to have it electrically lit. There was a big bidding war and competition and who was going to get that job. And it got nasty. There was a lot of... Look up Farnsworth versus RCA in the invention of the TV and how RCA screwed him over. Was it Farnsworth? Philo Farnsworth versus RCA was a landmark 1930s patent battle for control of electronic television where independent inventor Farnsworth proved his 1922 conception predated RCA's Vladimir Zworykin. While RCA aimed to control all of television rights, Farnsworth won the 1934 ruling, forcing RCA to pay royalties for his patented technology. But this isn't a complete story, because while all this happened, it all got put on hold because of World War I. And everything, all manufacturing had to stop regardless of who has the patent, because everything had to go to the war effort. And any sort of subject or judgments regarding the court case were all postponed during the war. So you got put on hold until the war ended. And then they picked it up again. And then by the time things were made right, the guy died. Like, it didn't even... It's such a sad story, and it's brutal. Brutal. But basically, RCA just filed lawsuits to keep him in court and try and, while the court's cases were pending, he was sort of placed in stasis, if you will. You know, you're in limbo until this gets figured out. And then he'd win, and then they'd appeal it. So you're right back in limbo again. And they just kept buying more time and buying more time, waiting for the patent to run out. And that's what RCA did. It was nasty, but it was legal. It's a competitive marketplace out there. Bruce Murray was the son of longtime Hershey's president, William F.R. Murray. So, but what was Bruce Murray's role at Hershey? We know what his father did, right? But what did he do? Basically, he was a high-up executive at Hershey, if I'm remembering correctly. His son, Bruce Murray, the son of the Hershey vice president, before he partnered with Forrest Mars, he became a partner, but before he became a partner, I see everything about when they became partners, but what was Bruce Murray doing before that? They keep calling him the son of the Hershey's president, but he had a role at Hershey, Bruce did. What was his role? Wouldn't that suck to only be known as the son of your father? That would suck. Who are you? I'm George Foreman's son. You know what I mean? Like, they only know you because of your dad. They don't know you because of what you've done in your life. Just growing up in the shadow of your father, like Henry Ford II or Edsel Ford. I can't find it on a search right now, but I'm pretty sure he had a pretty high up position, if I'm remembering it correctly, at Hershey, and something happened that pissed him off. I mean, if your last name just happens to be Mars, think about this for a minute. Does it make sense that your first candy bar or one of your early ones would be called the Milky Way? Right? Did you ever wonder how to get the name?
Bruce was Hershey's right-hand man. And when Hershey had to get control of the company, he did not choose Bruce, he chose another person.
So Bruce thought he was going to inherit
Correct.
Control of Hershey.
Correct.
When
Hershey
his father or Hershey himself?
When Hershey himself was going to take over.
Not to his father, the president, but to the president's son, Bruce. And then Bruce thought this company's going to be mine when Hershey retires, and Hershey didn't give it to him.
That is correct.
And he felt betrayed because he was waiting his whole life.
Yep.
Stayed loyal, hardworking, and he got the shaft.
And then Forrest came back from the UK, and he had this recipe. He had found this way to make chocolate.
Yeah.
And brought it to Bruce Murray and said, we should up and do this, and that's what they did, and they created M&M.
And they used Hershey's chocolate for it, though, right?
I don't
Hershey's
remember.
provided the chocolate for their competitor, Mars.
Yes. Yeah,
it's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Hershey's attitude was, they're like, you want to sell chocolate? They're not a competitor. They're like this big. We don't have to worry. Yeah, sell them chocolate. We'll make the money.
After Forrest and Bruce took off and did their thing with M&M's and Mars Company and everything else, and all that had. Apparently, Forrest was very difficult to work with, and Bruce wound up leaving because Forrest was such a jerk.
So the two guys that were betrayed each other, or were very difficult to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, but then Forrest, with his business acumen and his stinky hood, he decided to take back control of Mars. When the family had, I don't remember if they actually put it up for sale or he just bought so much stock.
I think he did a hostile takeover.
Like something like that, or
he bought up all the stock. Yeah.
He wound up having control of his fund.
Yeah.
I love that.
That
was a great episode.
There's a series called The Brands That Built America.
The food that built.
Oh, it's the food. Well, they also have the brands.
Also with that.
The food that built America is what, like 7 seasons, and it's like 12 episodes a season.
One comes out
6 seasons.
This month, right?
So the 7th one hasn't started yet.
Yeah.
And it's like an hour-long documentary about a rivalry or some massive American brand, Coca-Cola, Pepsi,
fast food to
Levi's,
to chocolate to,
well, not Levi's, not with food. That would be brands.
Correct.
There's a different spin-off series.
Right.
But the food that built America, yeah.
And it's a great series. So
Pepperidge Farm.
If you're into that kind of stuff, it's awesome. I highly.
Yeah, because all this stuff happened before we were born. It's always been here, and it's like, well, how did it get here? Before Oscar Mayer became known, was there really an Oscar Mayer? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see Colonel Sanders as the face of this.
And the story about the hot dogs is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Dave Thomas told Harlan Sanders, you need to be the face of the company. Nobody was doing that. And when Dave Thomas left and found Wendy's, well, he used his daughter as the face of the company. He was frequently the one doing the commercials, putting his face. Hey, I'm Dave Thomas. I started. You guys remember in the 80s? Dave Thomas was very much doing the very same things he was telling Harlan Sanders, recommending and advising Harlan Sanders to do. And just Harlan wanted control, Dave wanted control. Eventually, you just got to go separate ways, which I think the similarity with M&M, they both men were wronged, got together, made it right, but then couldn't stand each other because they both wanted control, and then that relationship split. But everybody made money. They were successful. Fascinating stuff. There we go. Mark Gaines looks like he's done a little research on it. I just think it's fascinating and it's inspiring because if you look at the odds that were against them and they did it anyway, we've got it made. The fact that these companies won't start to make their own routers here because they think it's too big of a risk, they don't even know what risk is. You go back to the Depression era and you go back to people during Prohibition and all the like Budweiser. What was Budweiser going to do? All of a sudden, a law passes that says you can't sell beer anymore. You can't sell alcohol. And you got a big factory of thousands of workers, you have all this inventory, and now, starting next week or whenever the law takes effect, you can't sell alcohol. And that goes on for what, 10 years, 1929 to 1939? What are you going to do? Some companies changed over and made ice cream and other things with the factories they had and the workers they had. And Budweiser, he's like, what am I going to do with all this grain and all of this, all these hops? And, you know, I've got an inventory here for a factory to mass produce it. By just throwing all that money down into the garbage can? There's got to be, well, the law never said you couldn't brew your own beer at home. It just said you couldn't sell it. Well, there you go. Let's start packaging this stuff up and selling it to our customers who can make their own brews at home. And that's how you find the loopholes. And it's those like times of desperation where you're on this precipice and you're about to fall to your death. And you realize, I can just walk over this way and it's totally fine. And you end up shining, you know, smelling like a rose because you saw the challenge. And the immediate thing I think that everybody's mind goes to by default is failure. It's, I'm going to lose. But there's few of us that when they're told they're going to lose, something awakens within them and they become strong, like the Hulk. They become stronger and more powerful than even they ever realized. And boy, is that inspiring. It's like a good old-fashioned Rocky movie, but where Rocky is all fiction. This actually happened. This is real life. Wow. It gives you a new appreciation for the sacrifices people used to be willing to make. I can say, finding those people today just doesn't seem like people are willing to put themselves on the line like that, like they used to be. So, you know, as a society, you sort of, something hits big and then it just stays big forever. Coca-Cola hits big, it just stays big. M&M's stay popular, Reese's stays popular. Nothing has unseated them because nobody wants to do the work. It's just already there. And as long as it remains unchallenged, it'll just stay the #1 seller. The psychology of that's fascinating. Like, well, there's no way we can improve this or sell something better. Let's just try to replace all the ingredients with the terrible, unhealthy, but cheaper ingredients. People still buy it. The whole reason it sold and became popular was because of the quality and the value. So let's get rid of the quality and reduce the value so we can earn more money and basically poison everybody. Okay. What was the other one? Cigarette companies, when they saw that, and especially in the 60s and the 70s, there was this push about making cigarettes illegal, and there was cigarette companies saw this early on. Right? They testified before Congress about the addictive nature of cigarettes, the health consequences of cigarettes, and they tried lying and they just told all kinds of fibs just to make another dollar another day, but they knew they weren't going to be able to withstand what was coming. So they needed another way to make money. And do you know what 2 big cigarette companies did to replace tobacco? Do you know what business they went into? Because I didn't know, and I'm fascinated by it. Philip Morris, I want to make sure I get the facts right on this. Started selling highly addictive sugary drinks to children. So they went from one highly addictive thing to get people hooked. And they were like Capri Sun. That's a tobacco company that runs that, or it did, using the exact same marketing techniques they used on cigarettes, only to do it to children instead of the market. Well, they were also selling cigarettes to children. But and so Philip Morris's competitor was it High C they bought? Or Hawaiian Punch? Which one was it? They literally, they both did the same thing. They went from addictive marketing addictive. Yeah, R.J. Reynolds, a major tobacco company, purchased Hawaiian Punch in 1962 and then transformed it into a children's brand using the exact same marketing tactics, very similar to those for cigarettes. They utilized Punchy, the cartoon mascot. Punchy. How would you like a nice Hawaiian Punch? Boom. You remember those commercials? Guy got punched in the face. Yeah, that was R.J. Reynolds, tobacco company. It's crazy. And Philip Morris did the same thing. They acquired Kool-Aid, Tang, and Capri Sun. They did the same thing. Highly addictive to a much... You think it was bad with tobacco. They just made it worse with sugar for a whole generation of kids, knowing they'd never get enough of it. Keep them wanting more. That's not a history that's very well known. Did any of you know that? Because I sure as heck didn't. And it all makes sense when you think about it. You're like, oh, I never put those things together before. But okay, there you go. John Williams said, my brother-in-law went to Mars High School in Pennsylvania. What a name. Hey, that's cool. David Graham says, greed is America's downfall. Unfortunately, greed's the only reason people get off the couch. I mean, most people in America. Otherwise, the people just sit at home all day and do nothing. So there's a good side. There's a motivator to get something done. And the downside is, much like anything else, some people get addicted to it and they lose their way. And the whole thing that got them started switches from that passion to how much money I can make becomes their new goal. And it's like a drug, I think. It's unfortunate. But you can't have one without the other. You know, you've got to have the incentive to get up off your butt and do something. And that incentive is usually a financial reward. And if that's greed, then we're better off with greed, because without it, we don't have any of the modern things that we have that makes life so much more livable than 100 years ago, when most people didn't even have a refrigerator. You had an ice box, and you'd have a delivery guy come deliver a giant block of ice. There wasn't a gas station because there weren't roads, because there weren't really cars. Just going back, until Henry Ford said, I want to make cars affordable so everybody can afford one. Then you could have the infrastructure for the roads, and for nicer roads and wider roads. And America's road network, I think, is the most complex in the world, if I'm not mistaken. One of the largest and most complex amount of miles and pavement. And if Henry Ford hadn't done that, would somebody else? Or would have cars been for only the wealthy few who could afford them? And if that was the case, would there be as many roads? Because who are they for? So one thing leads to another, and it can often start with, what's the financial reward for this? Other times, there are inventions based on, cures for diseases that people have, and they have to come up with their own cure because nobody else is doing it. Look at the work Michael J. Fox is doing in funding Parkinson's research, and the amount that he has contributed, that if he had never gotten Parkinson's, we wouldn't have advanced this far. Not that we found a cure, but he's very good for that cause and drawing attention and money into more research and accelerating the research with the funding and things that are available due to greed, due to the fact he's got the money, and other people want to do that work, even though the reason he's doing it, he didn't have much interest in Parkinson's until he got it, right? David Graham said the whole reason the U.S. lost manufacturing is because of outsourcing greed at the max. Yeah, I mean, look at car manufacturing. It's pretty strange that you can buy a Ford that was built in Canada, but you can buy a BMW that was built in Georgia. Can you explain this to me? It gets complicated. Which one is the American car? Not even sure. Neither one, I suppose. And you can't blame DeLorean for trying. You can't blame Tucker for trying. At least they gave it a shot, man. All right. Well, you know, it is what it is. And unless we're involved in it, we're just spectators to it. And we're just yelling at the TV at this point. But it's just interesting, kind of revisit some of the history of things as a justification for incentive that we can get it back. We've done it before. There's no reason we can't do it again. And I don't know that the government's going about it the right way to incentivize it by making it law, but time will tell. And again, another administration, regardless, will probably come in and change it anyway, regardless of success or failure. They'll just change it because they don't like it and they like something else. And again, they keep changing the rules of the game, but we're not even playing the game. We're just watching. And we're affected, obviously, by the outcome. But unless we have a hand in the decision making, you know, we're all affected here, at least in the US in this subject matter, equally. Nobody is getting the benefit that somebody else isn't getting as far as, you know, if the price of RAM and SSDs went up, it went up for all of us, not just you. So this woe is me is like woe is us. And hopefully some of us will get up and do something about it rather than just talk about it. Sometimes it's a matter of where you live and what's available to you. You think of what Michael Dell did because of where he lived and what opportunities were available. Or you think about what Mark Andreessen and Jamie Zawinski did with Netscape or Mosaic because of where they were. If they were somewhere else, they probably wouldn't have been able to do what they did. So sometimes it's time and place. You got to have luck, but you've also got to do something. You can't wait for it to come to you. You make it happen. But sometimes if you're in the wrong place, if you want to be a big Hollywood actor and you live in Omaha, Nebraska, you might have very few and far opportunities. But if you live in San Fernando Valley, or maybe you're in New York City, your opportunities, because you're in the right place, are much greater because that's where the majority of that work is done. And much the same way, if I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, I could be a millionaire because I would have been involved in one of those startups during the dot-com bubble. For sure, I can promise you I would have been. But that wasn't an option for me in Phoenix. It wasn't a thing. There wasn't the means for me to make that happen. And it's easy to go back, right? If Steve, to say, oh, well, if I would have, well, but I didn't know. If Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were not in California, specifically where they were, with the homegrown, you know, the homebrew computer club, do you think there was a homebrew computer club in Des Moines? Not likely. Sometimes it's just a matter of where you are and seeing the opportunities around you during that time, because you can still go back to where Apple was founded and try and do what they did, and you won't be able to because it's already been done. So then you have to do the next thing. And I think the government's trying to light a fire under people's butts. But I'm not convinced from what I'm seeing that anything's changing. Other than things are going to get more expensive until finally somebody starts getting off their butt. I guess they're just going to keep tightening the screws. I guess that's the plan. Let's just make them as miserable as possible until they realize. I guess that's what they're doing. I don't know. All right. Well, I was hoping during today's broadcast, if I procrastinated enough, we'd get that one of the packages in, but I don't think it's coming today. So, but with that, you know, we've drifted quite a bit. I enjoy the little clubhouse we have here and hanging out and just kind of exploring some of these topics without necessarily picking sides. I'm just observing it. I don't know what's right and what's wrong in any of this stuff, but I can tell you what it is. I can tell you it's affecting us all. And I can tell you my understanding of why it's happening, which may or may not be accurate. But as much as anybody else, I'd like to see it change. I just don't know any other way it's going to happen until either these companies start making these investments the way the government wants them to, or another administration comes in, which happens first. That's what's on the table. It's not a question of you like it or you don't like it. It doesn't matter if you're behind it 100% or you're against it. It doesn't matter. It changes nothing. And that's why I say I don't like to get into politics on that, because my personal feelings about it they're irrelevant. But we can talk about what's affecting all of us. And we all share a lot of the same frustration in the industry, including the manufacturers in it. And if these huge multi-billion-dollar corporations are helpless, what are you and I going to do, right? So here's hoping this gets worked out sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, you know, I still have to stay to my schedule. If I say I'm doing a video on Friday and I got nothing to review, I've got nothing to fix and nothing to upgrade, and there's no new stuff coming out, I'm still doing the show. That's what today was. Because the alternative is, I go, well, I got nothing, guys, no show today. And then before you know it, there'll be no audience. So I apologize that the show content has shifted so much, but the alternative is no show at all. Now, if you have thoughts on that and you want to share them with me, I'd love to hear that, for better or for worse. Kind of curious. If you don't tell me, then I just have to assume you're okay with it, but maybe you're not. Or maybe you like more of it. I don't know. But there it is. There's the email address if you want to write to us and share with us your thoughts or any experiences you have with the difficulties in buying RAM and storage and things these days, and you just want to commiserate with us. We'd love to hear your experiences that you've had that you want to share. They're always welcome. And you know, am I better off not making a video when I don't have the subject, or was today's video preferred? I don't know, but I'm trying to be a man of, you know, being a man of my word. If I said I'm doing a show on Friday, a show's going to happen. So Fridays and Sundays, we always do a live show. And on Mondays, we always do a members only live show. I am committed to that no matter what happens to the industry. But am I causing more damage to my viewers or my viewership by going on with the show anyway? Or am I saving it? I don't know. So we're all stuck in this together, and I don't have the answers any more than anyone else. But I certainly appreciate your thoughts on it regardless. And thank you to all the members for supporting us here. And enjoy our conversation as always in our little tech clubhouse, sharing a conversation. I want this channel to be more than that, but as you can see, it's happening all over, and I just hope it's very temporary. As I mentioned, we're doing things to keep things moving. Dennis says, what about having a guest? We have several invites. We're not getting responses. People are not responding to us. I don't know why. They won't tell us why. They just ignore. We get ghosted. We reach out, very friendly. Hey, we'd love to talk to you, and then can't be bothered. Okay. So we're trying. Do you know anybody that wants to be a guest on the show? Because the people we reached out to don't seem interested. I don't know why. Maybe they're not getting the message. Maybe I'm assuming everything negative and maybe it went in their spam. I would think anybody that we would have as a guest would know to check their spam filter. I could be wrong. But I assume they have their reasons and they don't want to talk about it. maybe they're afraid of offending me, so they just pretend like they never got them. It's just left to my imagination. I don't know. I really don't know why. But trust me, we've been sending invites out and we're not getting much in the way of responses. Or we say, wow, that'd be great, and then, you know, I'll follow up, and then they never follow up. And I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to sit there and keep hounding somebody. You know, if I got to twist their arm, that's fine. If they don't want to be, if they're not looking forward to joining, where I have to chase them down, I'd rather just be by myself if that's the case, because that's too depressing. Dennis says, what about a call-in like your radio show? The problem that we've had with the call-ins are the trolls. So unless we can screen the calls ahead of time, like a traditional TV show or radio program, we'd have to filter those calls. And potentially, Mara could screen the calls. So, I mean, it's possible. But like when we ask people if they have questions here in the chat, you've seen how empty it's been. I think a lot of people are using AI and stuff to get their questions answered. Or they don't have computers anymore. Or Windows, they just use cell phones and tablets, and those people don't have those kind of questions anymore. I don't know, but it's changed. So why would they call in, but they wouldn't write in? That doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't mean we couldn't try it. Like, we could put the steps in place, but, you know, to screen the call, we'd have to get a temporary number, forward it, screen the call. We don't have a transferable phone system, so Mara would literally have to have the phone in her hands and then hand it to me after screening the call. It's a little bit basic, but we could do that. That could work. But I just don't think anybody's going to call. I just feel like I'm either going to get trolls or I'm going to get nobody. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, if people had questions, why would they not ask them except on a phone call? That's what I'm not getting. I mean, we could set up a voicemail and say, hey, leave your question in voicemail, and then we'll do a show where we play back voicemails. But you could have long solved your problem before we get to it. So I don't know how useful that is either. I keep hitting these obstacles, and I'm not quite sure how to get around them. That's why we're open to suggestions. Even crazy ones might seem like, thinking out of the box, you know, just what we need. Andy said he'd love to see Matt again. Well, you know, to be honest, we have not reached back out to Matt. I've been kind of, you know, he's been producing a lot of content. He just seems like a really busy guy. And I really enjoyed having him on the show. And I would love to have him back. I should reach out to him again. I just wanted there to be a good space, so I'm not putting pressure on him or anything inadvertently. Just due to my enthusiasm, I've enjoyed every guest we have on the show, but Matt in particular, in that his content is so similar to what he does to what I do. That's just very enjoyable for me. It's like a son I never had. Brings a tear to my eye. Chip off the old block. But no, I'll definitely invite him back. But I've not yet invited him back because, again, I didn't want to. I don't know. I feel like, you know, he already did it once. How many times are you going to keep asking him? But maybe he's disappointed we haven't. I don't know. We haven't talked. Although, you know, he has email too, and he can reach out to me. It's not like it only works one way, and he hasn't done that either. So yeah, I do need to ask him back. Worst he could say is thanks, but no thanks, right? And I appreciate the reminder. And he said a variety of views is always welcome. What happened with Tech Vets with Mike Smith? It ran its course. You know, nothing goes on forever. Priorities change, values change. It's like whatever happened to the Beatles. You know, they were so good together, and then, you know, it changed. So we enjoy the opportunities that we had but we very rarely do opportunities last an entire lifetime. The industry changes, people change. Anytime you work in any sort of a business relationship or partnership with a marriage or a business or a band, it's just really a matter of time before things start changing and it just doesn't work anymore. Or there's a disagreement with the kind of subject matter you want to cover, things of that nature, where you're just not on an alignment anymore. So that's inevitable, I think. But you know, we did some great shows, very, very good memories, and now it's time to make new memories. That's all I'm trying to say. David Graham says, even if you have no product to show, I am the product. You love them. I'm a product. Keep your receipt. Might need to return that. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Andy mentions Emerald Computers treasure trove. Yeah, we got to get back over there. The last time we were there, it just kind of seems like a lot of the same. A lot of very old off-lease, like Dell computers, a lot of monitors, a lot of power adapters, and it's just more and more. So the last time we were there, well, a lot of the inventory had been rotated out and replaced with other inventory. It's almost the same sort of genre of inventory. It's not like there's a whole different type of technology or a whole different type of computer that rolls in and rolls out. Every once in a while you get something that's very different, but it's another printer, you know, it's another accessory that, you know, keyboards and mice. And I mean, if you want all that stuff, they have it in by the ton, just tons of it. But when you go back the second time, right, the first time it's all new and you're like, wow, look at this, look at this, look at this. But the second time it's, oh, that again and that again and that again. But if you space it out maybe by a year, then maybe you go back and it's like, oh, enough has changed. So I think part of that has to do with time. What people are primarily sending off to recycling now is all about the same era. Next year, it'll be probably an era newer, and we'll start seeing bulk amounts of different things instead of just a little trickling here and there. So that's my theory on why the second visit, when I walked around, I didn't really see anything I wanted. It was like, yeah, we've already done all this. And so I don't know how fast the rotation is with regards to not him selling and replenishing, but what's being dropped off in mass. So machines that are come off lease that are now being dropped off to recycling are 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old machines, and there's tons of them. Next year, if they're still 5 and 6 year old machines, that's still a year newer, right? So then we'll have a bulk amount of newer stuff. But is it every year? Is it every 6 months? When does it start changing? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, our last visit there was a pretty quick visit. It was pretty much a quick look around, and it's exactly the way I remember it. And I already took everything I was interested in the first time. And even though it was, say, different machines, they were of the same era. It was the same, I don't know how else to explain it. So it's not that, you know, I've given up or anything like that. It's just the refresh rate, if you want to call it that, of when the new stuff is coming in instead of the same old stuff. I don't know how frequently, but I imagine probably takes about a year to see that big shift in what's being dropped off from year to year. But I'm just speculating. I really don't know. And he's like, yeah, I thought there might be some interesting stuff. So did I, right? I mean, the first time I went there, it was so much to take in. But the second time I went there, it just felt the same. Now I'm trying to find a needle in a haystack because I've already seen the haystack and there were tons of needles. Now I see the same needles I saw before and I'm looking for one needle that's different. And I'm looking at this inventory and it's all just kind of looking the same as last time. And it kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit to try and dig through to see if maybe under this pile, maybe there's something, because there probably isn't. So why bother? I'll just wait until the piles are of newer stuff. And that's probably going to be more of an annual thing, I think. I mean, I told the owner, I told Jason, I said, if something comes in you think might make some good content for me, please reach out and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just stopping in randomly, and if every time I'm stopping in there's nothing new, I'll be stopping in less frequently, right? And if that breaks down to once a year, then that's what it'll be for that market. And he said, I guess there's no NAS stuff or anything. No, nothing. Nothing. Nope. Synology asked us if we're interested in some home security cameras they're coming out with, but they're all wired. I'm like, well, these cameras, the ones that we looked at were primarily indoor only that run through a USB cable. Like I'm not interested in that. I want security cameras that would go outside and ones you don't have to give any power to. So I want them to have battery charged and preferably solar powered and be on Wi-Fi. So all you do is set the camera up and there's no wiring at all. You're done. It's that easy. And UFI and AOSU and EUFY, if you search them on YouTube, they make cameras that are solar powered, battery operated, Wi-Fi. So you literally put 2 screws into the mount, put the camera anywhere you want it outside. It's weatherproof. Synology's never been a leader in hardware. So Synology's coming out with cameras that we were buying 10 years ago. They're like, hey, you want to review the cameras? I'm like, well, I'd like to review cameras, but not those cameras. Those are a little behind in what's being offered in the security sense. They're not web cameras, but they're not really home security cameras. I mean, I guess they are, but you're not that far from CCTV. You might as well just go back and run some coax cable and hook up CCTV, closed circuit television. I want to take advantage of Wi-Fi. I want to take advantage of rechargeable batteries and solar power. And it's not like it hasn't been done, but Synology they're entering this new business, right, of offering these cameras, more like trying to compete with Ubiquiti or something. And Ubiquiti is a whole lot of money. And I'd like to see something a little more consumer friendly and small office friendly, more like AOSU and UFI offer. I'd like to see Synology step up and do their version of a solar powered, battery operated, so when the sun is down, it can still run. You never need to take it down and charge it. You never need to run a cable to it to power it. You never need to run a cable to it to connect it to your network. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Then you can put the camera anywhere you want within your Wi-Fi range. And if Synology did that, I'd be all over it. But what they had 3 cameras, and they were just like the cameras we were buying 10 years ago. And I'm happy to see them expand into that category. But on the other hand, you're really falling behind Synology. Synology has the benefit that you can store all the files on the Synology, whereas on UFI and AOSU, it's storing on a internal memory of a base unit or of the camera itself. Or you can pay for the cloud service. So the idea with Synology is you would have your own NVR in the NAS as part of what it's doing. Not its sole function, although it could be. It could be doing a bunch of other tasks as well as being your NVR and doing all of your security camera recordings. But I guess you got to start somewhere. I would have liked to have seen Synology introduce a product that was a little more innovative than the stuff that was innovative 10 years ago. And I appreciate that they thought of me and offered it to me, but I'm not going to do it. I can't recommend it, not today, not for the money. The barrier to getting somebody to buy a security camera is the wiring. You say, well, PoE. Okay, you still got to run the cables. One way or another, you got to run a cable. Whether that cable's your internet cable, or that cable's your power cable. PoE is just the internet cable and power cable in one cable, but still a cable. If you want to put a camera over your garage and it requires you to get up in your attic and run the network cable yourself or to pay somebody to do it, probably aren't going to do it. But if I tell you all you got to do is screw the mount against the wall wherever you want it, plug the camera in and make sure the camera has access to direct sunlight at least a couple hours a day, you'll never have to take the camera down ever. It'll withstand the weather, the rain, all of it. It just works. If Synology had that, I'd be all over it. So I was like excited. We have a camera, you know, security. And then I saw the cameras and went, oh, missed it by that much, Synology. But that's all, the latest I've heard from Synology is what they're working on. Not about NASs, it's about cameras now. So anyway, we'll figure it out. But like I said, what was the name of that company? Origin Magic. We should have that and the minis forum this weekend. Should. Which will hopefully come in time for Sunday's show, and then we'll save whatever one is left for Friday's show. Whichever one comes first will be Sunday. That's where we're at right now. That's just how it is. But, you know, I've enjoyed your company regardless. I hope you enjoyed mine, and I hope you'll be back. We are back on Sunday, one way or the other, regardless. If neither one shows up, I'm still going to be here. So thank you for being a part of it. Thanks to Mara for all the work that she does, getting our videos ready. And I hope you guys have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here Sunday, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Until then, bye for now.